Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Robot Girl Era. My robot girls are all world class. Chapter 1. The two of them were forced to leave, and the two of them were forced to leave. Sun Yan, I'm sorry, you've been fired by our Tengyu club. Pa, a contract was thrown on the table. Sun Yan looked at the contract, then looked at the yellow-haired man opposite him, and raised his eyebrows. The yellow-haired man's name is Zhang Kai, the boss of the Tengyu club, with 5 racers and 3 mecha girls under his command. In front of him is a breach of contract. It states that he forced the mecha girl Jade 786 to commit indecent acts after the training on April 1, 2024, which seriously violated the rules of getting along between humans and mecha girls, and has now been expelled from the Tengyu club. Being expelled also means that he will lose his identity as a driver of Jade 786 and the qualification to participate in the North Rally. Since you have done a good job in the modification work in our club during this period, especially YU 786 has been trained very well by you, forget about the penalty, just be grateful. Zhang Kai laughed arrogantly and threw a pen in front of Sun Yan. Hurry up and sign the contract and leave. Indecent assault. Sun Yan stood up and looked at Zhang Kai coldly. When I checked her engine module, it was inevitable that there would be physical contact. Just touching her back is considered indecent assault. If I put my hand down a little, would she ovulate and give birth to a cherry QQ? Sun Yan, speak with respect. Zhang Kai frowned and sat up straight, his tone impatient. Chu Yu is my daughter now. I have established a sole branding contract with her yesterday. If you scold her now, you are scolding me. After Zhang Kai said this, Sun Yan completely saw the reason. He spent a month to carefully modify the daughter, and even paid for the training of the daughter, but someone else took advantage of her. In the end, he even lost the qualification for the competition that he had fought so hard for. Zhang Kai's shameless behavior made all his efforts go to waste, including his plans for future development in this world. That's right, Sun Yan is not from this world. He came to this world of speed and passion more than a month ago. The Mecha Girl Rally is the main theme of entertainment and competitive sports in this world. Its status is equivalent to the collection of various world-class industries such as Hollywood, the World Cup, and the Olympics on Earth. If you can achieve something on this road, you can become a superstar. However, the rally in this world is a little different. The racers on the track are not ordinary racing cars, but a group of special beings called Mecha Girls. They are no different from human girls outside the race. Only when they are on the track will they transform into intelligent mechanical girls driven by racing drivers. Did YU 786 take the initiative to agree to this? Did you not coerce her? Sun Yan's mind flashed with the mecha girl who usually obeyed her. It was hard to imagine that she would betray him. Of course, it was YU 786 who took the initiative to find me. Zhang Kai leaned back in his chair and said casually, if you don't believe it, just ask YU 786 in person. He clapped his hands, and a tall girl pushed the door and walked in. Master, you're looking for me. Yu walked to Zhang Kai with a respectful look. Sun Yan was very familiar with such a humble look. Usually, Yu was the same in front of him, but at this moment, he felt that YU 786 was very unfamiliar. As his eyes fell on YU 786, a translucent virtual panel gradually emerged on her body. Drift, 66 points. Acceleration, 72 points. Corner, 61 points. Charge, 55 points. Stability, 53 points. Anti-collision, 51 points. Endurance, 60 points. Evaluation. This is a girl who just passed the regular track driving test. The anti-collision and stability are very poor. It will fall apart if touched. Only he can see this information, which is one of the golden fingers for him to come to this world. Another golden finger is to strengthen the attributes of the mecha girl by obtaining MP value through competition. Now the attributes of YU 786 are all after replacing many parts, such as tires, frames, batteries and other parts that do not require modules. When he first took over YU 786, YU 786's attributes could not complete the regular competition at all, and the other 2 mecha girls in the Tengyu club were even more miserable. He originally planned to take YU 786 to participate in a few small training matches before the Nox rally next week, accumulate MP value to improve attributes, and make up for the shortcomings of not being able to resist collisions, so as to try to get good results in the Nox competition. Now it's good, U-786 directly dumped him. You tell. Su Sun-yen, did you take the initiative to come to me yesterday to sign a contract? Zhang Kai put his arm around Yu's waist, his face full of pride. Yu and Sun-yen's eyes met, and he said indifferently. Sun-yen has no competition experience, and has not even participated in a training match. He is just a rookie racer, but Master is different. He has participated in several Nox rally. The reason why he didn't get good results before was just because of his bad driving skills. Me, a rookie racer. Sun-yen pointed at himself and laughed in anger. In his previous life, he was a world-class racer. If the car had not been tampered with in the last race before retirement, the brakes had failed and he flew off the cliff and the car was destroyed and he traveled to this world, he should be celebrating his victory in his villa with the championship trophy. What are you laughing at? Are you furious? Zhang Kai crossed his legs and looked at Sun-yen with a strange expression. Is what you said wrong? To win a place in the Nox rally, not only does the quality of the girl need to be good, but also a skilled racer. Sun-yen, you haven't even participated in a race, you are not qualified. I agreed to give you YU-786 to reward your modification talent. Now this is Yu's own choice, you have no right to interfere. Quote. After that, he pushed the contract in front of Sun-yen, indicating that Sun-yen could sign and leave. Sun-yen looked at Zhang Kai and YU-786 in silence for a while, picked up a pen and signed his name on the contract. Hey, that's right. Zhang Kai picked up the contract and said with a smile, Sun-yen, you are still young, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. I think you are more pragmatic, and I can't bear to part with talents like you. Why don't you come to be a modifier for my U-786? The salary remains unchanged. Quote. Sun-yen didn't say anything. After a while, a sneer squeezed out from the teeth sounded in the office. Zhang Kai, do you know what wall hanging overtaking is? Do you know how to turn the drainage ditch? Do you know how to drift? Quote. You don't know anything. He looked at YU-786 again, his face even colder. You ungrateful thing, do you really think I'm interested in your car frame that breaks at the slightest touch and your clumsy snail-like turns? U-786's face turned pale, and she looked at Sun-yen with astonishment. In the 1 month since Sun-yen took over, Sun-yen had never driven her, let alone tested her, so how did Sun-yen know her shortcomings? Maybe I guessed, she speculated secretly in her heart, but she was a little uneasy. Did she make the wrong decision yesterday? No, it's impossible. Sun-yen is a rookie, and he can't do anything except modification. Even when he first met her, he didn't know what modules and intelligent cores were. Following a racer like Sun-yen, she could not achieve any honor at all and could only be lost in the crowd. Zhang Kai did not understand what Sun-yen was saying, as he had never heard of those terms. However, he understood what Sun-yen said about him not understanding anything and criticizing U-786. He had driven YU-786 yesterday, and the feel was much better than that of other girls in the club. This made him more certain that Sun-yen was just incompetent and furious, because he could not get the favor of U-786. Sun-yen, you are not even a driver, what do you think you are? Zhang Kai slapped the table and pointed at Sun-yen. I can participate in the Nox rally, can you? Which girl will follow you? If you have the guts, go and contract a girl, and make sure I can't see your taillights at the Nox rally next week, and then YU-786 will naturally come back to you. No need, you can keep this broken car for yourself. Quote. Sun-yen turned around, pushed the door and walked into the darkness. The indifferent voice still echoed in the office. Zhang Kai, YU-786, see you on the court. Xingqian, cat ear hairpin. What did he mean just now? Is he really going to join Nox? Zhang Kai was so angry that he laughed when he looked at the door of the office. Just him, can he finish the race? A rookie who has never participated in a race. Master, don't be angry. Yu smiled and kneaded Zhang Kai's shoulders. This kind of person is just talking nonsense. He has no machine girl and no driver qualification. It is impossible for him to participate in Nox. Even if he participates, it is meaningless. He is not even familiar with the rules of the competition. You were right. Zhang Kai stroked Yu's hand and laughed, but this Sun Yan is still good at modification. If it weren't for you, I really couldn't bear to drive such an outstanding modifier out of Tengyu Club. Master, we won the Nox Rally, and with fame, we can naturally attract modifiers. That's the truth. Zhang Kai thought about his module factory that had stopped operating due to gambling debts. He used all his money to buy YU 786. Before, seeing that Yu and Sun Yan had a good relationship, he did not think of signing a contract with Yu. After all, the choice between a pilot and a pilot is a two-way choice, and it is meaningless to force it. Now, YU 786 has taken the initiative to become his pilot. This time, the Nox competition is sure to win. By then, his factory will be revitalized and the debts will be settled. The night wind was very cold, and Sun Yan shivered. He never looked at the Tengyu Club again, without any nostalgia. If YU 786 followed him, he could barely accept this unremarkable pilot. At most, he would take YU 786 to more competitions in the future and use his driving skills to make up for it. Sooner or later, YU 786's attributes would be improved and she would become a famous pilot. But YU 786 looked down on him, so naturally he would not look down on YU 786 anymore. Although this world has developed the rally to the extreme intelligence of the racing car has also made the racers like a group of giant babies, who know nothing and don't even know how to launch a catapult. Sun Yan looked at the street lamp and couldn't help but sneer. Leaving him is definitely the most regretful choice of YU 786 in his life. People live for nothing else but to fight for their reputation. Heiko has already boasted, and now we have to find a way to contract a mecha girl. Sun Yan frowned. No matter how much he looked down on the simple track of Nox and the 200-kilometer rally, he had to admit that he was not qualified to participate in the competition now. There are two main channels to obtain mecha girls. Either go to a specialty store that specializes in selling mecha girls to buy, or follow the club. The club will transfer the mecha girls from the auction to the racers under its command. This is how YU 786 came into his hands. At that time, the Tengyu Club auctioned 3 mechas on the Intelligent Machinery Island. After the unmanned driving test, only YU 786 remained. The other 2 mechas did not want to become functional vehicles and all chose to return to the furnace to end their lives. For mechas, if they cannot race on the track, they lose the meaning of survival. Many mechas will choose to return to the furnace after being eliminated, refresh their mental cores, and use them to produce new mechas. This kind of thing seems very cruel to Sun Yan, but it has become commonplace in this world. People respect the mechas who have returned to the furnace, but they don't feel sorry for it. It seems that I can only go to the furnace to see. I hope there are still mechas who have not chosen to return to the furnace. Sun Yan sighed, stood by the river, looked at the brightly lit city that never sleeps, and finally took out his mobile phone to dial a number. Hello, who is this? Uncle Liang, this is Nianzai. Didn't you say before that you would inherit the furnace to me? I agreed. There was silence on the other end of the phone, and only the whistling wind could be heard. Nianzi, you don't want to be a racer anymore. What happened at Tengyu Club? No, how dangerous is it to be a racer? I've figured it out now. I'm only suitable for eating and waiting to die. I'll just inherit your backyard. Uncle Liang on the other end of the phone entered the house. With the sound of the door closing, the whistling of the wind also stopped. Didn't you insist on being a racer before? And you said that my job was done by an old man. Why do you suddenly regret it? Sun Yan clenched his fists and didn't say anything. But it's okay. There's nothing better than living in peace and security. Come back soon, I'll make you your favorite fish soup. Uncle Liang knew that Sun Yan didn't want to say anything, so he didn't ask more. Sun Yan called a taxi on the street, shrunk into the passenger seat, and finally. I felt a little warmer. There are ordinary vehicles in this world, but they only perform the most basic transportation tasks, cannot participate in rallies, and cannot become sweet and soft girls. Master, go to the conscience return furnace. The driver responded and drove quietly. When he first came to this world, he was almost like a beggar. Uncle Liang picked him up and brought him home, and later raised him as a son. Uncle Liang is an old man with a good personality, but his health is not very good. He always coughs. Sometimes he has to cover his chest and frown for a long time. This old man always asks him to inherit the return furnace, and always shakes his head when he hears that he wants to be a racing driver. Sun Yan doesn't understand why. After all, racing drivers in this world are the professions of the upper class, and it is also a shortcut for ordinary people to cross classes. We're here. Hearing the driver's reminder, Sun Yan came back to his senses from his complicated thoughts. After paying and getting off the car, there is a huge ruin in front of him. There are piles of racing car wreckage here, and there is a sign in front of the mottled gate conscience return furnace. After the robot girl is recycled, the body loses its intelligent core, and the remaining wreckage is recycled by the recycling yard. These wreckages are taken away by the government every year, and a one-time allocation is given to the recycling yard. After all, the recycling yard also has to pay money when it collects the robot girl from the club, and it makes money by the difference in price. Uncle Liang lives in a small wooden house in the center of the recycling yard. When Sun Yan entered the door, the aroma of fish soup was already lingering in his nose. Is Nyan back? The kitchen curtain was lifted, revealing an old man with a hunched back and a vicissitudes of life. His hair was almost completely white, and when he smiled, the wrinkles on his face piled up like old tree bark. The fish soup will be ready soon, hot. He turned around and shrank back into the kitchen. Uncle Liang, where is the robot girl sent to the recycling yard a few days ago? Sun Yan put down his backpack. They are in the warehouse. Uncle Liang's voice came from the kitchen. They are all poor children. Since you are back, please go and see them for me. They will be sent back to the furnace tomorrow morning. It would be best if you can persuade them to make functional vehicles. If you can't persuade them, forget it. Arranging the robot girls to go back to the furnace is the job of the furnace yard. As the director of the furnace yard, he has the obligation to provide psychological counseling before the robot girls go back to the furnace. After all, from a human perspective, there is no difference between a robot girl going back to the furnace and committing suicide. If a robot girl is willing to make functional vehicles, she can not only survive, but also contribute to mankind in other fields. Sun Yan has done this kind of work for Uncle Liang before. Many robot girls are determined to go back to the furnace and cannot be persuaded at all. He rushed to the warehouse and took out the key from his waist. I can only try my luck. He took a deep breath and then saw if he could pick out a seedling who could participate in the competition among the robot girls who were about to go back to the furnace. However, he knew very well that this possibility was infinitely close to zero, because the robot girls who would choose to go back to the furnace were eliminated and had no hope for their future. To put it bluntly, they are just a batch of defective products. In the warehouse of the recycling yard, a girl in a silver tights was huddled in a corner with her knees hugged. There was no other mecha girl next to her, only two racing car wreckages. In the main control room of the racing car, the mecha girl's intelligent core was quietly suspended, which also indicated that the two mecha girls had been disassembled in advance before recycling. On the girl's chest, an intelligent core emitting silver light like a star was gradually precipitating. She was also disintegrating. Creak. The warehouse door opened, and Sun Yan, who rushed in, just saw this scene. Stop it, he shouted quickly. The girl was frightened and froze, and half of the intelligent core was extracted and shrank back. The first step before the robot is put back into the furnace is to disassemble the robot core in the body. The robot core is the brain and heart of the robot. What the furnace needs to do is to send the robot core into the furnace to be reshaped into a pure robot core, and then hand them over to the government. The wreckage of the robot body is temporarily placed in the furnace. In this way, the robot's recycling process is completed. Are you in such a hurry to recycle? Disassemble before the time is up. Sun Yan closed the warehouse door and turned on the light. The girl looked up and looked at Sun Yan, then lowered her head with a lonely look. Are you XC99? Sun Yan had some impression of this girl. She was one of the 3 girls that Tengyu Club had bought. He didn't remember why she was eliminated. At that time, he had just joined Tengyu Club and was just an ordinary repairman. He was not qualified to touch anything related to girls. The girl didn't respond to Sun Yan, nor did she continue to disassemble. She just huddled there and didn't know what she was thinking. Sun Yan shook his head and took the unmanned driving test records of the 3 cars from the shelf next to him. The girl on the left is numbered BQH-144. During the debut, the engine module exploded and one of the doors fell off. It didn't run the whole course at all. The one on the right, numbered CK-72, was even more outrageous. The chassis cracked halfway through the run and the brake pads rolled all over the ground. No wonder it was disassembled in advance. There is no hope of making a functional car. Sun Yan was helpless. Unlike mass-produced cars, the mecha girls are like humans, born unique. Even different serial numbers of the same model have very different properties. Moreover, they also have a sense of shame and self-esteem, which is even better than humans. XC99. Sun Yan looked through the third report, which was also his only choice. Although this mecha girl finished her first run, she hit the fence at all the corners and hit the finish line alive. However, to Sun Yan's surprise, the speed of XC99 was not slow, and it was even faster than YU-786, which also successfully completed the entire test. He put away the test record of XC99 and his eyes fell on the girl. A virtual panel appeared. Drift, 20 points. Acceleration, 90 points. Cornering, 7 points. Charge, 90 points. Stability, 75 points. Anti-collision, 80 points. Endurance, 85 points. Special ability, Emperor Engine. Within 30 seconds, the acceleration attribute is increased by 0.5 times, and the charge attribute is increased by 1 times. The current stability is less than 80, and the engine module explosion rate is increased to 80%. Evaluation. If you ignore the shortcoming that she can kill the driver, she is a monster on the straight track. Sun Yan touched his chin and nodded repeatedly. This summary of the golden finger is quite pertinent. Driving an XC99 is indeed life-threatening, but the advantages of the XC99 are very obvious. Apart from the uncontrollable curves, the XC99 is definitely an extremely high auction price that the Tengyu Club dare not even look at, not to mention that the XC99 also has hidden special abilities. You must know that special abilities are the stepping stone to becoming a world-class mecha girl in this world. If an ordinary driver knew the properties and secrets of the XC99, he would probably be afraid of his life and would not dare to drive it. But he is different, he is the king of the track. Others driving an XC99 would cause the car to be destroyed and people to die, but he would at most lose his arms and legs. There is no other choice. There are only 5 days left before the Nox Rally. Sun Yan clenched his fists, and the scene of him driving the car to the finish line again and again appeared in his mind. In that era, he was a superstar who was unrivaled. Even if he did not have the special abilities after crossing, he would choose the XC99, but now with those abilities, the XC99 also has unlimited possibilities. There is no car that I, Su, can't drive, not in my previous life, not in this life. He murmured to himself in a voice that he could hear, and walked towards the girl. His eyes looking at the girl became brighter and brighter. The girl looked up and saw the man who broke into the warehouse standing in front of her. He was against the light, and his facial features were not clear. He only knew that his angular body was not strong, but he was very tall and his shoulders were very broad, blocking all the wind whistling in from outside the warehouse. Want to play on the court? Huh, become my girl and play on the court with me. Sun Yan stretched out his hand. XC99 stared blankly at the hand stretched out to her. Her petite body trembled uncontrollably. She had longed for someone to extend this hand to her countless times, but now it was too late. I'm sorry. Tears rolled down the corners of the girl's eyes. I can't go to the race, I will kill you. It is the dream of every mecha girl to race on the track and win honors in one event after another. They are born to compete. But only mecha girls who complete the first race have the opportunity to enter the racing club and be assigned a driver. Each mecha girl can contract a driver, and once the contract is signed, she will be the property of that driver, so choosing a mutually recognized driver is very important for mecha girls, which is related to what kind of achievements they can achieve in the future. If the contracted driver is irresponsible, they may be resold, disassembled, or even recycled. XC99 is one of the last batch of mecha girls who completed the race. At that time, there were tens of thousands of drones participating in the debut, but only less than 1,000 of them finished the 40-kilometer regular track. After that, the XC99 was bought by the Tengu Club for a low price. At that time, she foolishly thought that she would be assigned a driver. Although her turning performance was poor, she was resistant to collision. When she entered the Tengu Club for testing, after one run, the silicone dummy on the car had been torn into pieces. She woke up, she understood, and was labeled as a killer racer. She was sent to the retraining field by the furious Tengu Club boss Zhang Kai, and at this time she accepted her fate. She was very fast and resistant to collision, but she could not turn, and whoever was her driver would die. So she would never be able to go on a regular track in her life, and no one was willing to drive such a bomb. She had made the decision to retrain, but she still had a lingering attachment to this world. While waiting for the retraining, she watched the drones flying freely on the track on TV again and again, and tears welled up in her eyes. She wished she could run on the track like those mecha girls and participate in a real competition, even if she would retire after the competition. But she had no driver. When she first came to the furnace, she also hoped that someone would rescue her. But she had calmed down in the past 2 days. Even if someone was willing to rescue her, she had to go back to the furnace. She couldn't kill the driver who rescued her, right? So she prepared to strip the core in advance like BQH and CK. Unexpectedly, at this time, a man suddenly broke in and said with a firm face that he would take her to the race. The old man was very happy. You can play in the competition. Don't underestimate yourself. In my opinion, you are a very good girl. Sun Yan looked at XC99 with a firm look. He needed to convey some faith to this desperate girl. I can't get on. XC99 was a little out of control, with tears on her face, and she covered her face and said hysterically, "You don't know what kind of defects I have. I am a killer racer. I know you can't turn." Sun Yan sat next to the girl and looked at the two disintegrated mecha girls with her, but turning is not just the mecha girl's business but also the racer's business. If the racer can master the braking point, even if your steering ability is very poor, you can still complete the turning operation with technology. Really, really, XC99 was stunned and blinked her big eyes. No one had ever said such a thing to her before. Sun Yan stretched out a hand to XC99 and said with a smile, "If the mecha girl is the back of the hand, then the racer is the palm of the hand. The palm and the back of the hand are a complete hand, which can complete various crafts. So how can the poor steering performance be blamed entirely on the mecha girl?" XC99 felt that what Sun Yan said seemed to make some sense, but it was contrary to the knowledge she was born with. The racer must choose a good performance mecha girl, so that it is convenient to cooperate with the mecha girl to complete the race. Who would choose a mecha girl with defects that may even kill people? Unfortunately, Sun Yan did not give her more time to think. He directly grabbed XC99's soft little hand and smiled like an old fox. There are still 5 days before the Nox Rally. Do you know about this rally? XC99 certainly knew that the Nox Rally was the most basic event and the first famous race for all mecha girls. The top 10 mecha girls in the Nox Rally can participate in the subsequent events. If they can overcome all obstacles, the world-class competition will be waiting for them in the end. The mecha girls who win the world-class competition can become world-class mecha girls, which is the pinnacle and goal of all mecha girls. What I mean is, if we don't hurry up to train and run in, we will have no time. But XC99 is still worried about her own defects. No buts, let's go out for a run now. Sun Yan didn't give the girl a chance to refuse. He took her hand and walked out of the warehouse. When XC99 reacted, they had already arrived at the street outside the recycling yard. "I will really kill you." XC99 looked at Sun Yan with complicated eyes. "No, isn't your only concern about turning? If you don't believe me, we can try it now." Sun Yan pointed to the end of the road. "There is an intersection about 800 meters from here to there. There are few cars around here at night. Let's take the 90-degree curve at the intersection as an example. If we can successfully turn together, you will make a contract with me and be my mecha girl." Anyway, he will never modify any mecha girl before making a contract with her. Every failure is a lesson learned. It was YU-786 who always said that he would sign a contract with him when the game was about to start, which led to his being kicked out of the Tengu Club. The fruits of his hard work were plucked by Zhang Kai. Now he only puts his efforts on the girl who belongs to him completely. XC99 looked at the intersection illuminated by the street lamp. She knew very well that with her level, she couldn't turn even a 90-degree curve. She could only deviate to a straight line, but she couldn't turn as easily as those girls. Fortunately, there was no risk of hitting the fence at the crossroads. Even if the turn failed, she could just slow down and stop by the roadside, so as not to put the driver in the car in danger. Why not give it a try? XC99 showed a trace of struggle on her face. Only she knew how much she longed for the track. Those disappointed words and the look of contempt for her were still like knives stabbing her heart. She often wondered why she was carrying the model of XC. It was the blazing meteor in the world of mecha girls. When she was born, she was proud of the name of the star. After her debut, she looked at herself in the mirror with bruises all over her body, and was looked at by the strange eyes around her. She felt only shame and heartache. Try it, Sun Yan said with a smile. Oh, let's try it. XC99 gritted his teeth. Although he had learned a lot about mecha girls during this period, when XC99 unfolded its body in front of Sun Yan, he still felt a strong shock and disbelief emerged. Can you imagine? A cute silver-haired girl, like a character from an anime, with flesh and blood and warmth, but in front of you, she unfolds into a luxurious racing car like a transformer. Sun Yan looked up and down at the XC99 model, which looked very similar to the Bugatti Divo in the previous life, but compared with the Divo's powerful appearance, the XC99 looked more gentle. The front of the car was not so fierce, the overall paint was bright silver, which was no different from her hair color, and there was a whale tail-like tail behind it. Sun Yan had also seen the appearance of the Jade 786 unfolding before, and he could only say that compared with the XC99, the Jade 786 gave people the feeling of a mass-produced racing car, while the XC99 was a serious limited edition. He couldn't help but reach out and touch the body of the XC99. As a result, the girl's shy and angry voice came from the car. Come in quickly, don't touch me randomly, it's itchy. Ah, this. Sun Yan quickly withdrew his hand. It seems that the car body and the five senses of the girl are connected. Opening the door, I saw that the XC99 was lying in the middle of the main control room, showing the posture of riding a motorcycle. The tight uniform on her body set off a beautiful arc between her waist and hips. Her hands and feet were connected to the motorcycle. A very technological mechanical arm extended from her spine, facing the cab behind. This spine shaped like a steering wheel is the joystick that Sun Yan controls the XC99. It's so beautiful. Sun Yan opened his mouth and looked at everything inside. It is said that girls with excellent attributes can complete driving by themselves, and the driver mainly makes judgments and assists, because the driver's field of vision is wider, and the better the girl, the better the quality of all aspects. At this moment, the luxury of Xingqian's interior is simply not comparable to the plastic interior of U-786. You hurry up and get in, the wind outside is blowing in, it's freezing. XC99 looked at Sun Yan with a blushing face. This was the first time she unfolded the car body in front of humans and exposed all the interior. Even though this person would become her driver in the future, she couldn't help feeling shy. Sun Yan took a deep breath and pretended to be very skilled in sitting in the driver's seat. How to say it? The seats in the luxury compartments of the plane in the previous life were not as comfortable as this seat. He couldn't explain it. It was probably a skin-friendly feeling. It didn't feel like a seat, but like being gently held in the arms of a girl. He even had the idea of sleeping in the car tonight. Why? How is it? Is it comfortable to sit in? XC99's voice was actually a little nervous. Very comfortable. Sun Yan couldn't help but sigh. If the racing cars in the previous life were also designed to be so comfortable, he wouldn't have an occupational disease. Hee. The somewhat silly laughter of XC99 came from the front. Sun Yan reached out and grasped the joystick. At that moment, his brain suddenly became dazed, and then he felt his mind connected to another mind. He knew that it was the intelligent core of the XC99. Now he only needed a thought to give instructions to the XC99. Compared with the racing car in his previous life, this was undoubtedly more accurate, because the speed of sound and hand was not as fast as the speed of nerve reflex. So the brakes and clutches are operated here. Sun Yan's eyes showed a hint of enlightenment. You don't know how to control the mecha girl. The voice of XC99 sounded in Sun Yan's mind. I thought you were an experienced racer. This is my first time driving a mecha girl. Sun Yan told the truth. XC99 was a little lonely when she heard this. How could someone who drove a mecha girl for the first time control her on the curve? Although she was desperate, she was still willing to follow Sun Yan to drive once, not for anything else, just because Sun Yan was willing to let her go on the road seriously before she went back to school, and experience the feeling of being affirmed and driving. This was enough for her. Let's go. Sun Yan's mouth curled up with a confident smile. Release the handbrake, shift gears, and step on the accelerator. Although it is very different from driving a racing car in his previous life, as the rear wheels rubbed against the ground and burned the tires, his blood instantly burned. The tires slipped briefly to regain grip, and the engine module of the XC99 let out a harsh roar like a beast. Ah, what did you do? Why is my chest so hot? The panicked voice of the XC99 sounded. The smile on Sun Yan's face became more and more flamboyant, and passionate flames burst out of his eyes. Let you see what a catapult start is. As soon as the voice fell, the XC99 rushed out like an arrow from a string. The roar of the engine resounded throughout the street. The knowledge of racers in this world is very poor, and they don't know many skills. At least among the people Sun Yan has come into contact with, such as Zhang Kai, the owner of the Tengyu Club, and the racers under him who are as arrogant as 2.5 million, they don't know what a catapult start is. XC99, as a girl, doesn't know what a catapult start is either. This can only mean one thing: either this world has not developed a technology like catapult start, or there is an operation similar to catapult start, but it is only realized by the module or the characteristics of the girl itself, and the name is different from catapult start. 100 kilometers in less than 2 seconds. Sun Yan gasped as he looked at the scenery that was rapidly receding in his field of vision. Your acceleration is too outrageous. The speed of the XC99 continued to climb, and it reached 400 kilometers per hour with no sign of stopping. Her speed could obviously be even faster, but Sun Yan had to react. He originally thought that he had at least 20 seconds to react as he was more than 800 meters away from the intersection, but the actual situation was less than 15 seconds. If he accelerated further, he would probably roll over when turning. Ah, it's over, it's over. The panicked voice of the XC99 was already ringing in his mind. Sun Yan narrowed his eyes. His brain was extremely calm, and everything around him seemed to slow down. He caught a glimpse of the traffic lights at the intersection. The street was empty. A truck was moving away slowly on the far left. The shadow cast by the street lamp was blurred and turned into a distorted oil painting. There was only 2 seconds left for reaction. The CX-99 had entered the best braking point. Most people might have panicked at the extreme speed of the XC99, but he was a track king who had been tempered. The tip of the knife danced. The more dangerous, the calmer. Follow my instructions. Sun Yan issued an order, turned the steering wheel sharply in the direction of the turn, and ordered the XC99 to pull the handbrake. It should have been very easy to do this step, but he felt that he was not holding the steering wheel in his hand, but the horns of an out-of-control bull. If he didn't hold it tightly, he would be thrown out by the bull in the next second, so he was full of strength, and veins on his forehead popped out. At the same time, the XC99 was struggling to control his body. Thanks to Sun Yan's judgment, even though the XC99's steering ability was extremely poor, it still shifted sideways when it was about to hit the fence at the intersection, and the rear of the car swung outward. At this moment, Sun Yan immediately pulled the accelerator to the full and quickly turned the steering wheel in the reverse direction. Under the influence of the fierce driving and grip of the XC99, the car body that was about to lose control immediately straightened and jumped out with a boom. It was not until it continued to drive forward for a long time that Sun Yan came to his senses and stopped the XC99 on the side of the road. To be honest, this is the first time I drive such a fast car like you. Sun Yan opened the door and got out, standing on the side of the road to take a breath. It took only 15 seconds from the entrance of the furnace to the intersection, and then it took less than a minute to drift through the corner and drive straight. In this more than a minute, his back was soaked with sweat. The XC99 recovered from the unfolded state to the human form. She stood in front of Sun Yan, and her expression on her face looked a little dull. Just now, I turned a 90-degree bend, didn't I? Ah, Sun Yan nodded. Didn't hit any guardrails. Aha, XC99 patted her face, and tears fell as she patted. I didn't hit you. Sun Yan took a half step back. You slapped your own face. I did it. The girl murmured to herself. Her tears gathered into a river, her sobs turned into howling. She threw herself into Sun Yan's arms, and cried like a little animal. I did it, I really did it, woo 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 woo. I'm not a murderous racer, I can also turn. Sun Yan originally raised his hands high and let XC99 hold him. But seeing the girl crying so miserably, he subconsciously put his hands on the girl's head and gently stroked it. XC99's hair is very beautiful, as silky and white as moonlight, but her skin is even whiter. She looks young and less than 1.6 meters tall. Such a perfect girl may only exist in a fantasy world in her previous life, but in this world, she was born with huge pressure and was labeled as a killer racer. She even ended her life to be reshaped. Although the rules of each world are different, Sun Yan still feels. XC99 felt so pitiful. She was so happy just by turning a corner. Master, can I participate in the Nox rally? XC99 raised her head, her eyes were misty with tears, and there were snot bubbles on her delicate face. From those blue eyes, Sun Yan saw a deep desire. Of course, he didn't even notice the change in the girl's address to him. It's just a Nox rally. Thinking back to the past, Sun Yan was about to promote his great achievements, the trophies that filled a wall, the luxury cars that filled the garage, but suddenly remembered that the knowledge of the two worlds was not interoperable. Even if he told XC99 that he participated in such and such competitions, XC99 would not understand. I will never embarrass Master. XC99 looked at Sun Yan with determination and said word by word. From the moment Sun Yan took her around the bend, she swore that no matter what happened in the future, she would do her best to protect Sun Yan's safety. No matter whether Sun Yan still needed her, she would follow Sun Yan without hesitation, unless Sun Yan sent her back to the training room. I believe you won't embarrass me. Sun Yan touched XC99's head. The night wind was a little cold, and he sneezed. The temperature difference between day and night in this world is quite large. It can reach 40 during the day and drop to 5 at night. He came out in a hurry without wearing a coat. Master, get in the car quickly, don't get sick. XC99 held Sun Yan's big hand with her warm little hand. She pressed against Sun Yan and suddenly opened up. Then Sun Yan found that he actually sat directly in the car. Let's go back and try to pass that bend again. The formal training will start tomorrow. Sun Yan leaned comfortably on the seat, but his heart was not as relaxed as it seemed. In fact, he just lied to the XC99. The XC99 asked him if he could go to the Nox rally. In fact, he couldn't, because the steering performance of the XC99 was too poor. He had to work very hard to complete a 90-degree turn. There were a total of 14 turns in the Nox rally. Each turn was smaller than the turn at the intersection, and the track width was narrower. Moreover, the last turn was a series of hairpin turns. The distance between two consecutive hairpin turns was less than 200 meters. Such turns were simply child's play for him in his previous life, but he had thrown this arrogant idea behind him when he was driving the XC99 just now. The racing car in the previous life was a dead object, and all the data was basically constant. But the machine girl in this world is a living thing. When he was driving the XC99, he really felt that he couldn't pull it, especially when turning. This is just the curve at the intersection. If it is on the Nox track, even if he calculates the braking point to the extreme and pulls all the technical details to the limit, he can't avoid the car from being destroyed and people from dying. Otherwise, he can only give up the ranking and reduce the speed. But what's the point for him in the XC99? In 5 days, I must find a way to participate in a few ordinary training matches suitable for XC99 to get MP points, and also modify the XC99, otherwise I will die in the car in the Nox rally. Sun Yan thought silently while driving. This time he braked in advance and passed the right-angle curve at the intersection more skillfully and safely. The excited cheers of the XC99 came from the front. The roar of the engine also followed all the way. Who is racing at night? Zhang Kai came out of the club with U-786. When he passed the conscience return furnace, he just saw the XC99 passing by at a ghostly speed, and then turned and left, leaving only a long tire mark on the ground. What kind of car is this? Zhang Kai was stunned. He felt that the car was familiar, but the speed was too fast and he couldn't see it clearly. Also, what kind of technology is this? Could it be an intelligent machine master? Zhang Kai looked at the tire tracks in the middle of the street from a distance, and the sound of squeak echoed in his mind, and he felt his soul trembling. This was something he had never seen before, at least he had never seen this kind of cornering technology in the Nox rally he participated in recent years. U-786 also looked pale, staring at the direction where the XC99 left in amazement, but unfortunately he couldn't even see the taillights. It shouldn't be an intelligent machine master, there is no psychic fluctuation. She said blankly. But, master, if I encounter such a car and driver in the competition, I have no chance of winning. Although she was unwilling, she still admitted her shortcomings. Let alone this gorgeous cornering, the straight line speed of the machine girl has already left her dozens of streets behind. Hey, when did a big boss come to our Zhongcheng city? Zhang Kai had no impression at all. As the owner of the club, he knew the racers and mecha girls in the nearby clubs, whether they were good or not, but there was definitely no such person among them, let alone this ghostly silver mecha girl. Don't worry, U-786. Your performance is already very good among our clubs. With my skills, we will definitely have no problem getting into the top 10. Zhang Kai saw that YU-786 looked lonely, and hurriedly took her hand to comfort her. The mecha girl and racer just now are obviously not at the level of Nox. They may just pass by and not come to participate in Nox. Even if they come to participate in the competition, the worst that can happen is that we give him the first place, and we will focus on the next 9. U-786's expression eased a little after hearing this. She suddenly thought of the man who modified him very well. I don't know if Sun Yan will really come to participate in the competition. Just him. Zhang Kai put his arm around Yu's waist and smiled disdainfully. Let me tell you, Sun Yan is poor and has no driving skills. No mecha girl is willing to follow him. Even if he really gets a mecha girl, he can only go back to the furnace to buy it at a low price. What are the mecha girls there? Defective products, a bunch of trash. No matter how he changes it, it's still trash. What's the point of trash and trash together, even if they come to participate in the competition? Master, I worry too much. U-786 pursed her lips and nodded. Zhang Kai looked at U-786's enchanting figure and couldn't help but smile obscenely. Let's go to my house tonight. My house is big and there are many beds. You can roll around as you like. You are the master, of course I will listen to you. Xingchen cat ear hairpin. When Sun Yan took XC99 back, Uncle Liang was already waiting at the door of the cabin. He glanced at the pretty girl next to Sun Yan and frowned. He said nothing, but pursed his lips and opened the door. Ahem. It's so cold outside, come in and drink fish soup. Sun Yan took XC99 into the house with a guilty conscience, scratched his head and sat at the dining table. Uncle Liang made 3 servings of fish soup and placed them on the table. Sun Yan picked up a bowl and drank it silently. XC99 wanted to say something, but she felt that the atmosphere was not right. She looked at the fish soup and swallowed her saliva. She wanted to drink it but didn't dare to do it. Uncle Liang put down the spoon, looked at Sun Yan and XC99, and moved his lips. Did you get a girl from the warehouse? Are you going to continue racing? Ah, Uncle Liang, I can't hide anything from you. Sun Yan laughed awkwardly. I have the idea of continuing racing. He felt that there was nothing to hide about this matter, and he couldn't hide it, so he might as well say it directly. Uncle Liang sat there in silence and sighed. You told me 10 minutes ago that you would not race anymore and would return to the furnace. Why did you change your mind again? Are you a chameleon? Didn't I just happen to see a girl when I went to the warehouse? Her. Uncle Liang pointed at XC99. XC99 subconsciously put his hands on his head and shrank his head. Yes, XC99 is very good. I think she has the potential to compete in Nox, and even the big competitions after Nox are no problem. XC99 was flattered and blushed. She didn't expect that Sun Yan, who was so skilled, would give her such a high evaluation. Since Sun Yan used the launch start and drift, she has regarded Sun Yan as a godlike existence. Very good. Uncle Liang's chest rose and fell violently, and he looked up suddenly, with anger and helplessness in his eyes. You can choose a good girl in the Tengyu Club, but only XC99 can't. Why? Sun Yan was stunned. Didn't you see the debut record of XC99? She can hardly turn. You want to drive a girl with difficult turning to participate in knocks. And then hit the curve. Are you tired of living? It was the first time that Sun Yan saw Uncle Liang so angry. The cabin was silent, with only the sound of the wind hitting the window. The old man's usually hunched back straightened up at this moment, and his eyes seemed to be filled with fire. Sun Yan didn't know if it was an illusion, but he also saw other emotions in the old man's eyes: regret, helplessness, sadness. These complex emotions gathered together and combined into a message that he couldn't understand. I know the steering of the XC99 is not good. Sun Yan looked at the girl next to him who was bowing her head because of the criticism, and explained, but this defect can be completely overcome, and I still have 5 days to modify her. Uncle Liang, believe me, I will make her a girl who can go on the regular track before knocks, and I will not fall behind in your return to the furnace. Uncle Liang looked at Sun Yan silently. Maybe Sun Yan's eyes were too firm, or maybe Uncle Liang was old and no longer had the energy to argue with young people. He sat back in his seat dejectedly, looking out the window and sneering. You were kicked out of the Tengyu Club, right? Your driving qualification was also revoked, right? If you want to participate in knocks, you have to take the test again. With the XC99 with extremely poor steering performance, can you pass it? I can. These 2 short words are full of Sun Yan's absolute confidence. According to his plan, as long as the steering attribute of the XC99 is increased to 40 before the game, it is almost certain that he will get the driving qualification. Okay, then go and take the test. Let me see how you do it. Uncle Liang collected all the fish soup on the table, and his voice floated from the kitchen. You don't have to worry about my retraining field. If you inherit the retraining field to a short-lived person like you, it will be over. Uncle Liang, I haven't finished the fish soup yet. Get lost. Sun Yan didn't feel comfortable going back to Uncle Liang's cabin to sleep tonight. He stayed in the warehouse with the XC99. When the XC99 unfolded the body, he lay in the driver's seat. I'm sorry, Master, I made you get scolded. The XC99 lowered his eyes and looked depressed. It's okay, Uncle Liang is actually a very good person. Sun Yan put his hands behind his head and sighed. Racing is a dangerous sport after all. He is afraid that something will happen to me, and he doesn't know my level. Is he your father? No. Sun Yan shook his head, but in this world, he is my only relative, so I respect him very much. Quote, XC99 tilted her head. She didn't understand why Sun Yan would say, in this world. It was as if he was not from this world. Anyway, don't take what he said to heart. No, he was telling the truth. XC99 twitched her lips and hugged her knees. My steering is very bad. If it weren't for the master, I would never dare to say that I want to go on the track and win the race. That's too luxurious for me. Quote. Sun Yan looked at the roof without saying anything. He was thinking about how to improve the attribute value of XC99. When his eyes fell on XC99 and he focused his attention, a virtual attribute panel would appear. At the same time, each attribute in the panel has a detailed description of adding points. For example, for the attribute of curve on XC99, which is less than 10, each MP point can increase the attribute by 1 point, but for the attribute above 50, 5 megapixels points are needed to increase the attribute by 1 point, and the attribute above 90 is 10 megapixels points to increase 1 point. Won the first place in the training match to get 15 megapixels points, the second place 10 points, and the third place only 5 points. Participating in regular competitions will double the points, and the first place will be rewarded 30 megapixels points, and so on for the others. In other words, before the Knox race, he had to find a way to take the XC99 to participate in at least 2 training matches, and win first place in both, so that he could get 30 megapixels points, which would add up to 37 points in the cornering attribute, and the remaining 3 points could be obtained through training and modification. After all, the mecha girls in this world are living creatures, so targeted training can improve their attribute values. It's just that each mecha girl's talent has an upper limit, and this improvement cannot be endless. Therefore, most racers still rely on purchasing modules to install on the mecha girls to adjust the mecha girls' attributes in order to cope with different types of rally races. Tomorrow, I'll go to the module store first, and then ask Uncle Liang where there are training matches in Zhongcheng City recently. Quote, Sun Yan is not worried about not having a race to participate in. Because before the official race begins, many training races will be held in various places. Some are organized by private racers, and some are led by clubs. He only needs to choose a track suitable for XC99 and take advantage of the speed advantage of XC99. It should not be a problem to get the first place. Hey, master, let's sign the contract. Sun Yan came back to his senses. He didn't know when the XC99 had come to him. The blue eyes looked at him without blinking, and seemed to emit a hazy glow even in the dark. Okay, sign the contract, then you will be my robot girl from now on. Quote. Sun Yan was very concerned about this matter. He had not forgotten the humiliation brought to him by U-786. The world's top racer was actually mocked by a robot girl with poor attributes in another world for not being able to race. 5 days later, he would let YU-786 and Zhang Kai know what it means to be a track emperor. XC99 narrowed his eyes and smiled, and took out his own intelligent mechanical core. Master, just put a drop of blood on it. Sun Yan looked at the Rubik's Cube-shaped intelligent mechanical core of XC99 with confusion on his face. I remember that the contract was just a mental imprint that could be established with a verbal promise. Why do you need to drop blood? Take out the intelligent mechanical core. The mental imprint contract can be lifted, and then the robot girl can choose another racer. XC99 held the intelligent mechanical core in front of Sun Yan, as if holding her own heart, but the core imprint cannot be lifted, so I can only be the master's robot girl. Quote. Staring at the XC99 who offered her heart to him, Sun Yan bit his finger without hesitation, and a drop of blood hung on the tip of his finger. Let me make it clear first, I am very poor and I don't have the money to buy you a module for the time being. You will have to go through hard training if you follow me. When other mecha girls use modules, you may have nothing. I am not afraid of hardship, nor am I afraid of not having modules. With a firm look in his eyes, XC99 stood on tiptoe and took the initiative to touch the intelligent core with the blood on Sun Yan's fingertip that had not yet dripped, and said with great momentum, only weak mecha girls need the assistance of modules. Quote. After the Omnic core absorbed Sun Yan's blood, the light on it turned into a light pink. XC99 happily took back the Omnic core, and the contract was completed. Anyway, she had planned to stay with Sun Yan. Unless Sun Yan sent her back to the furnace, she would always be Sun Yan's mecha girl. This kind of entrustment for a lifetime requires great courage for a mecha girl. But XC99 felt that except Sun Yan, no one would accept her flaws, and no one could lead her. Turning the corner, only Sun Yan can control her. It feels weird to always call you XC99. I need to give you a different name. Sun Yan touched his chin thoughtfully, while XC99 looked at Sun Yan expectantly. The racing driver names his machine girl. This is a very sacred ceremony, and it also shows how much the racing driver values that machine girl. How about you call me Xingqian? Sun Yan took the initials of XC and thought of the star-like body of XC99, so he came up with such a name. At this moment, Xingqian's eyes widened. This name is also the name of her bloodline. The robot girls of the Xingqian family are all famous for their speed. But at this moment, the name Sun Yan gave her seemed to represent the entire family. This is a huge amount of trust and expectation. Master, I won't let you down. Xingqian's eyes filled with tears and he bowed deeply to Sun Yan. Sun Yan was a little strange. Didn't he just choose a name? Why is Xingqian still doing it so solemnly and even a little passionate? At the same time, returned to the cabin in the center of the furnace field. Although it was already late at night, Uncle Liang had no intention of sleeping. He was leaning against the head of the bed, holding a photo in his hand, with tears in his eyes. In the photo, there is a family of 3. The son and father are both wearing helmets. The mother is smiling beside her, and everyone is making a scissor hand gesture. Uncle Liang caressed the young man in the photo, his lips trembling and his voice choked. You were so stubborn back then. Did you have to participate in the competition? After staring at the photo for a long time and smoking 2 more cigarettes, Uncle Liang carefully put the photo back into the drawer of the bedside table. Both of them are brats. Cough, cough, cough. He held his chest to catch his breath, took out a savings card from the drawer and stuffed it into his coat, then turned off the light and went to sleep. The weather was very hot, but the weather was very hot. Sun Yan didn't know when he fell asleep yesterday. He was always thinking about the training match and the module, but he was awakened by the sunlight coming in from the window in the morning. Strange, how could there be sunlight? Wasn't it in the car? Sun Yan opened his eyes and was about to get up, but he felt a sweet breath blowing in his face, accompanied by a thin breathing sound. Turning his head, he saw a childish face facing him, with long eyelashes flashing, sleeping soundly. Xingqian curled up, lying almost close to Sun Yan, but not completely close. Looking at this pretty face, Sun Yan, a good youth who once lived in the 21st century, had a sense of guilt for no reason. How is the age of a mecha girl defined? It seems that she becomes an adult when she leaves the intelligent machine island. In order to suppress the impulse in his heart, he immediately wanted to turn over. But the corner of his clothes was grabbed by a small hand. It turned out that Xingqian had been pinching the corner of his clothes when he was sleeping, as if he was afraid that he would run away. Master, don't go. Woo, I can definitely pass this corner. Sun Yan, good guy, Xingqian is really hardworking, even dreaming about passing the corner. The heat source around her was far away, and Xingqian woke up slowly. She rubbed her eyes in a daze and stared at Sun Yan for a long time. As if she suddenly reacted, her pretty face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, and her squinting eyes widened. Master, I'm sorry. Bang. Early in the morning, Xingqian kowtowed to Sun Yan very enthusiastically, and the floor tiles of the warehouse were broken. Sun Yan was stunned. Xingqian's forehead hit the ground without any damage, and then it hit the ground twice in a row. He didn't react until he felt the vibration of the warehouse. You didn't do anything wrong. Don't do this. I actually let the most respected master sleep on the floor. Xingqian covered her face and regretted it. I am an unqualified mecha girl. I remember that you were still in the unfolded state when you fell asleep yesterday. Sun Yan held the girl in front of his hands to prevent her from hitting the ground with her head again. Yes, sorry. Xingqian lowered his head and stirred his fingers, hesitatingly saying, I was too relaxed, and the endurance time was not enough, and I didn't replenish the nutrient solution in time, so I didn't know when I changed my form without authorization after falling asleep. Master, don't worry, it won't happen again next time. Xingqian stood up from the ground, raised his head and saluted. I will definitely become a qualified mecha girl. Sun Yan, I believe you, but let's eat first. After a night of settling down, Uncle Liang returned to his usual gentle appearance. Sun Yan used steamed buns with the fish soup that he didn't finish last night for breakfast. Xingqian also replenished food and high-energy nutrient solution. During the meal, Sun Yan chatted with Xingqian and learned that the endurance of a mecha girl refers to the time to maintain the unfolded form. A mecha girl with strong endurance is naturally more suitable for running a rally. Various emergencies in the competition, such as collisions, steep slopes, and sandstorms, will increase the consumption of endurance. If there is no special need, the mecha girl usually moves in human form to avoid wasting endurance. Your endurance should be quite strong. Sun Yan looked at Xingqian's endurance of 85 with a puzzled look on his face. U786 only had an endurance of 60, but U786 was confident that he could finish the Nox rally, which means that a track of Nox's length is more than enough for Xingqian. I haven't eaten in the past few days. Xingqian stuffed steamed buns into his mouth and drank a sip of high-energy nutrient solution. He said vaguely, at that time, I thought that I would be sent back to the furnace anyway, and eating more would be a waste of food and resources, so I simply didn't eat. Now I'm eating the first meal since I was born. Sun Yan, what a poor kid. Xingqian didn't even eat, and he dragged Xingqian around the corners and slept in the car yesterday. Sun Yan felt more guilty. He really deserved to die. You don't even know that the girl needs to eat, and you're still going to Nox. Uncle Liang showed a pair of eyes from above the open newspaper, and came over with sarcasm and sarcasm. Sun Yan knew that Uncle Liang had a sharp tongue but a soft heart, so he shamelessly rubbed over and said with a grin, "Uncle Liang, are there any training matches with fewer turns, or wider turns and less tight recently?" "Few turns, and wider turns. You're dreaming." "Right, in my dream. It's okay if one of the conditions is met. There are quite a few training matches. Knox will start soon, and there are trainings everywhere." Uncle Liang snorted. "Why, you plan to take XC99 to the training match? Aren't you thinking about running in with Xingqian?" Uncle Liang was furious when he saw Sun Yan's frivolous smile. "Stinky boy, even if you just participate in the training match, XC99 will find it difficult to complete it. Although the training match is much simpler than the regular match, it is impossible to have no curves, and as long as there are curves, XC99 will have problems." Xingqian next to him buried his head in eating, wishing he could press his head into the fish soup. "Uncle Liang, a race requires the efforts of the racer and the girl. Stop, I know you won't give up." Uncle Liang waved his hand. "It's better to participate in the training match, so that you can give up earlier." Quote. He threw the newspaper on the table with a snap, reached out and took the empty bowl from Xingqian's hand, and turned to go into the kitchen. Sun Yan saw that there were introductions to 3 training matches in the newspaper. 2 of them seemed more suitable for Xingqian. Uncle Liang is really a man with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Sun Yan looked at the busy figures in the kitchen and sighed. "Xingqian, let's go. Target Triumph Club." Quote. The Triumph Club is located in a valley north of Zhongcheng, and the surrounding area has been developed into a training track. When Sun Yan first joined the Tengyu Club, he often heard that the wealthy boss of the Triumph Club would hold training matches when he had nothing to do, and the rewards were not bad. The Triumph Club also welcomes racers or private racers from other clubs to participate in the training matches to compete for prizes. There is a little bit of ulterior motive in this. One is to show the strength of its own team, and the other is to poach and recruit some powerful private racers. When Sun Yan brought Xingqian here, the training match was about to start. At this moment, the track was crowded with racers and mecha girls, most of whom could not meet the standards of the Nox Rally, but it did not mean that these racers and mecha girls gave up. As long as they got a place in the training match, they would get a bonus. If they saved enough bonus to buy advanced modules to upgrade their mecha girls, they might have a day in the regular race in this life, so the scene was quite hot. Sun Yan took Xingqian to do a simple registration. Due to the large number of drivers and pilots, the training race adopted a qualifying mechanism, with the time to cross the finish line as the final ranking basis. Sun Yan and Xingqian arrived late and were ranked last. The host was already reading out the precautions for the race. The training race held by the Triumph Club this time was a J-shaped racetrack, with a total length of 25 kilometers and a total of 3 bends. The angle of each bend was about 90 degrees. The only thing worth noting was that the track would suddenly tighten at the bend, which was difficult for racers with little turning experience. It is a difficult point for the girl. For example, Xingqian, tap, 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 tap. A strange sound came from the side. Sun Yan turned his head and saw Xingqian looking at the track with a dull look in her eyes and a pale face. She was shivering all over and there was smoke coming out of her head. The tap, tap sound was the sound of her teeth colliding. Sun Yan, is this girl so nervous? It's just a training match. Sun Yan touched Xingqian's head. Relax, 25 kilometers is just a matter of a moment for you. But, master, there are 3 bends here. Xingqian trembled and stretched out 4 fingers, and there are no guardrails. Without guardrails, you can't rely on collision to correct the body. Ahem, with me here, do you still need collision to correct it? Boy, is this your first time taking a girl to the track? Don't be too confident. Quote. The speaker was a middle-aged racer who was in front of Sun Yan. Your robot looks like it hasn't fully developed yet, your legs are shaking. Uncle suggests you practice for another year. Training matches are also competitions, and competitions are very dangerous. Hearing the words, not fully developed, Xingqian looked up suddenly and was about to argue with reason, but when she saw the uncle's robot, which was 1.8 meters tall and had a magnificent bust, the momentum she had just gathered immediately withered. It was obvious that in addition to her appearance, her figure and momentum were completely crushed. Come on, Warhammer, show them your explosive body. The uncle smiled proudly, and the muscular queen next to him immediately unfolded the car body, combining into a behemoth in front of Sun Yan and Xingqian. It looks like an off-road vehicle, but it was the first time Sun Yan saw an off-road vehicle covered with iron. This is simply a tank. As he watched, the attributes of the robot also emerged. Drift, 17 points. Acceleration, 34 points. Cornering, 41 points. Charge, 15 points. Stability, 88 points. Anti-collision, 97 points. Endurance, 30 points. Evaluation. You don't want to collide with a short-lasting rolling knife on the track, do you? Isn't my Warhammer very handsome? The uncle showed half of his head from the car window. Boy, the competition is not a joke. Later, Warhammer and I will let you know what it feels like to not even see the taillights. Sun Yan. While talking, it was the uncle's turn to start. He retracted his head and let out a wolf howl, and the mecha named Warhammer rushed out with him. Shrinking. Because of the uncle's disturbance, Xingqian was not as nervous as before, because she found that the speed of Warhammer just rushing out was not fast, and it was incomparable with the catapult start used by Sun Yan. Countdown 30 seconds. Sun Yan touched his mecha girl's head. Xingqian, you also unfold it. Xingqian nodded, and then a bright silver luxury sports car unfolded in front of him. Unfortunately, other racers had already driven their mecha girls into the track, and no one saw Xingqian's gorgeous appearance at the moment. In a sense, those powerful mecha girls basically have luxurious appearances. Sun Yan sat in the driver's seat, holding the joystick tightly, and Xingqian's high-spirited voice came from the front. Master, I will do my best. Relax. Sun Yan curled his lips, released the handbrake, and stepped on the accelerator to the bottom. Overtake the Warhammer in front first. The wheels rolled up the dust, and Sun Yan quickly completed the ejection start operation. Xingqian rushed onto the track with the roar of the engine module, like a flash of silver arc. Master, follow the left 6 after the slope, and go straight. Xingqian's soft voice sounded in Sun Yan's mind. He operated calmly, leading Xingqian to drift through a beautiful arc in the first slow bend, and stepped on the accelerator to the bottom at the moment of exiting the bend, entering the first long-distance straight sprint on the training track. There is no navigator in this world, and the pilot girl is the best navigator. They are like a group of precision machines, able to remember all the details of the track and pass them to the racer's mind without any difference. Such high efficiency, coupled with the basic qualities of the pilot girl, leads to the extremely fast speed of the racing in this world. And fast cars also mean more risks. Risk. Sun Yan never takes it seriously. Xingqian, run as much as you can. Oh, Master, the prize money for this training match will probably be absorbed by our Triumph Club internally. Oh, there's nothing we can do. Those wild drivers are too weak. They are simply not comparable to us professionally trained and modified mecha girls. At the entrance of the Triumph Club, a large screen was broadcasting the situation in the training match venue in real time. A group of people were gathered around. Every time the Triumph Club organized a training match, there would be many nearby residents watching. After all, it was a national sport, and both mecha girls and non-mecha girls loved to watch it. Among them, 2 racers wearing Triumph Club racing suits were pointing at the game scenes on the screen. Ajin's speed is getting faster and faster, and it's hard to catch up. Is this kid secretly training again? At this time, a girl has passed the first corner, and the cornering speed is as high as 184. The crowd watching is boiling. If this cornering speed can be maintained in the Nox Rally, it can at least get a top 5. This girl is driven by Huang Jun, the chief driver of the Triumph Club. His girl is so good. If I have a girl like that, my speed may not be slower than his. Don't be jealous. Others have money to modify and install various modules on their girls. We have no money and can only work honestly to make money. Just then, one of the pictures on the screen cut to the starting point, and a silver phantom flashed by. Even the camera didn't have time to capture it. It was gone in a blink of an eye. Only the roar of the engine module could be heard. What kind of car is that? The 2 racing drivers of the Triumph Club were stunned. What the hell is this starting speed? Does Jun have this starting speed? Bullshit, I've never seen a mecha start like a cannonball. He struggled to squeeze out such an adjective. Like a cannonball. Most of the people watching around focused their attention on Huang Jun, who was far ahead. Only a few people noticed the Silver Phantom. The two racers from the Triumph Club quickly searched for the figure of the silver mecha on the screen, but found nothing. Don't worry, she is the last to start. You will see her first cornering data later. The two stared at the data of the last mecha. The cornering speeds of the mechas in front have all been refreshed. Compared with Huang Jun, a professional racer, the cornering speeds of those mechas are terrible. It's out. Seeing the cornering speed just refreshed on the data board, the two racers from the Triumph Club widened their eyes and their lips trembled. Mr. Duo. 312. Ah, they looked at each other and slapped each other in the face. It hurt. They rubbed their eyes and looked at the data board again. The bright red cornering speed, 312, was deeply imprinted in their minds. 312 kilometers per hour cornering speed, that girl didn't slow down from the beginning to the end. So awesome to participate in the training match. The cornering speeds on the data board were automatically ranked. 312 was ranked at the top, and Huang Jun's cornering speed of 184 was below. The crowd watching nearby was silent. It took a long time for someone to stand up and ask if the data board was broken. At the same time, on the track, Sun Yan and Xingqian had already passed the first corner. This was a big corner of about 110 degrees, and the difficulty was about the same as the intersection last night. The track was narrower than the road. Considering Xingqian's terrifying speed and blind turning, Sun Yan had to brake in advance to slow down, but even so, Xingqian's. The cornering speed still reached more than 300. How does it feel? Great, master, my chest is about to burn. There are 2 more corners, concentrate. Sun Yan looked up and saw a black spot on the road in the distance approaching quickly. The corner of his mouth twitched. Isn't this the Warhammer brother from before? He caught up so quickly. The uncle driving the Warhammer was leisurely in front. Although his cornering speed was only more than 80, it did not affect his pride, because this was the Warhammer's best chance to finish the race. He finally saved enough money to replace the Warhammer with a module to improve the endurance. In the past, the Warhammer broke down halfway, leaving a lot of regrets. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, a louder and louder roar came from behind. The uncle was stunned. Warhammer, is your nitrogen module broken again? No, the girl replied calmly. It was the girl from before who caught up. Ah, the departure time is 30 seconds different. The uncle's first reaction was disbelief, and then he looked in the rearview mirror, only to see a bright silver luxury mecha that was like a twinkling star in the sun, approaching at an incredible speed. My dear mother, isn't this guy a newcomer on the track? His mecha is so nervous. How could it be so fast? When the uncle was shocked, Xingqian had already rushed behind Zahn Hammer. At this time, the uncle finally reacted. Zahn Hammer, don't let her rush past. With a competitive consciousness, the uncle knew that he would probably be in the last few places, but who wouldn't be happy to have a slightly better ranking. He wanted to use the terrifying impact ability of Zahn Hammer to jam Xingqian, or even keep him out of the track. However, Zahn Hammer had just made a move, and a silver phantom had already passed from the side, quickly pulling away, and Zahn Hammer could only watch the taillights of Xingqian getting farther and farther away in vain. Master, 200 right angle turn to go downhill. The voice of Zahn Hammer woke the uncle up. He immediately slowed down and prepared to turn. The girl in front had no intention of slowing down. She did a beautiful drift, and the wheels even rubbed against the ground to produce sparks. The rear of the car was almost drifting out of the curve. At that moment, the engine roared, and she jumped out again, leaving the dust behind. After turning this corner, the uncle and Warhammer could no longer see the taillights of Xingqian. What was that just now? The whole car body was twisted. Isn't he afraid of flipping over? The uncle and Warhammer slowly passed the corner, thinking about the beautiful drift in their minds. It was a completely unknown thing, but if you could touch it, you would definitely be excited. This kid is a professional racing driver who comes to fry fish. That girl is not an ordinary girl. She even pretended to be on the track for the first time at the starting point. Brat. The uncle blushed and complained crazily. He remembered what he had said to Sun Yan before. And let others not see the taillights. Isn't it normal not to see the taillights when starting 30 seconds in advance? Now he not only overtook me by 30 seconds, but also made me unable to see my taillights. This is really embarrassing. Master, if you had that kind of skills, I would do housework every day. The sound of the hammer came faintly. The uncle twitched his mouth. If I had that kind of skills, would I still take you to practice matches every day? The car was not as good as the one that had been built. Pegasus, you are in good shape today. The speed of the third corner has reached 210. We may be able to compete for the first place in Nox in a few days. Hehe, the module that Master bought is very suitable. Huang Jun, the chief racer of Triumph Club, has finished the race with the robot girl Pegasus. He was the first to start, and at this moment he was taking the robot girl back to the club entrance from the finish line. We got the club's bonus again this time, which is boring. Huang Jun didn't even look at his and Pegasus's results, and turned to go into the club to get the bonus. Master, don't you want to see the results? Pegasus grabbed Huang Jun's hand. Nothing to see. Huang Jun glanced at the data board from a distance. Anyway, it's the first place. Although there are also people from our club, they are not our opponents. Apart from a few guys from the same club, I really can't think of anyone else who can pose a threat to me. I know. Pegasus looked at the people gathered around the big screen at the entrance of the club and said seriously, I just want to see how much faster I am after changing the module. Okay, then I'll go with you to see. Seeing that his own mecha girl was so persistent, Huang Jun could only turn around and accompany her. At this time, the crowd in front of the big screen suddenly burst into exclamations. Oh my god, this cornering speed is simply incomprehensible. Quote. It feels like the record of this training track of the Triumph Club is about to be refreshed. Huang Jun's mouth curled up. Pegasus, they are all shocked by your speed. Pegasus tilted his head and didn't say anything. She was in good shape today, fast, and perfect in cornering. But compared to the top mecha girls in those big competitions, her cornering speed still has a lot of room for improvement. Is it really necessary to be so shocked by her cornering speed? Huang Jun raised his chin and walked in front of the crowd, ready to welcome people's admiring praise. However, there was nothing, and everyone's eyes seemed to be glued to the data board. Captain, 2 racing drivers from the Triumph Club ran to Huang Jun with an expression as if they had seen a ghost. Captain, please go and have a look, it's too fast. It's really too fast. Yeah, it's fast in a straight line, and it's even faster in a corner. Huang Jun frowned. He already felt something was wrong, as if those exclamations were not because of him. He walked to the data board, and he and Pegasus took the least time, running the whole course in 5 minutes and 49 seconds, ranking first. The second place was almost 30 seconds behind him. There's nothing wrong, he is indeed the first. Suddenly, the angry roar of the engine came from the end of the track. Everyone who heard this sound, even Huang Jun, got goosebumps all over his body. Then the signal machine sounded, and then the data board refreshed the time taken by the last girl in the race 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Her name began to scroll and finally came to the top of Pegasus, ranking first. The data board changed to the most handsome man in the world, Xingqian. Huang Jun, Pegasus. Huang Jun. Are you kidding? 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Huang Jun was stunned, and Pegasus next to him stared at the data board with wide eyes and was speechless. This was a data that they could not imagine. Huang Jun did not give up and looked at Xingqian's cornering speed again. His young mind was hit by 10,000 points of critical strike again. 312 in the first corner, 327 in the second corner, 309 in the third corner. What's the difference between this girl in the whole race and not slowing down? Pegasus felt his scalp tingling when he looked at this string of gorgeous data. She trained hard for half a year, and even replaced a purple-grade module with the help of Huang Jun, so that she could reach the current cornering speed of more than 180, in order to shine in this year's Nox Rally. However, before she could be complacent, she was hit hard in the training match. Where are the racer and the girl? Huang Jun asked the racer in his club. The 2 racers pointed in the direction of the finish line, and 2 figures were seen tiptoeing to the door of the Triumph Club, looking inside furtively. Of course, they were Sun Yan and Xingqian, who were thinking about collecting the prize money. Master, why do we have to act like this? Xingqian followed behind Sun Yan with a confused look on his face. Keep a low profile, understand? Keep a low profile. Sun Yan glanced at Xingqian. The 15 megapixels points he had just won in the training match had been credited, but he had not yet added them to Xingqian. Point. He really didn't expect these racers and girls to be so bad. Although he didn't give up much, he was still surprised when he saw the difference in seconds between him and the second place. With such a big difference, he wouldn't be dragged into the laboratory for slices. Let's get the prize and leave quickly. You are, the most handsome man in the world. Sun Yan turned around with a smug smile on his face. Yes, it's me, I won't change my name, the most handsome man. Huang Jun's mouth twitched. It was the first time he saw such a cocky racer. Which club are you from? Or do you have any idea to develop in our Triumph Club? The club owner is not here today. As the chief driver, Huang Jun has the obligation to act on behalf of the owner, which is to recruit potential racers for the club. I don't have a club. Huang Jun was delighted when he heard this. Then you can definitely come to our club. For a driver like you, our club can offer very high treatment. Food and accommodation are provided, and our club will reimburse 50% of the modification fee for the machine girl. There are also bonuses and real estate rewards for winning a place in a regular competition. Triumph Club is quite famous in Zhongcheng City, and many amateur drivers want to join. He confidently thought that the olive branch he threw out would be accepted by this most handsome man in the world. However, Sun Yan shook his head. I'm sorry, we don't have the idea of joining the club for the time being. If we want to join a club in the future, we will definitely give priority to Triumph. What a joke, he was just cheated by the club, and he felt sick when he heard the word, club. Although the future large-scale competitions are all team competitions, there must be a club, but we will talk about the future later. At worst, he can set up one himself. Okay, Huang Jun felt regretful. But he couldn't force Sun Yan to come to Triumph, so he could only give up. Fortunately, the other party said that he would consider Triumph in the future, which was enough. Saying too much would only make people disgusted. The prize money for your training match. Sun Yan rubbed his fingers with a polite smile on his face. Oh, the prize money. Huang Jun reacted and asked his two younger brothers to go to the club to take out 2 stacks of banknotes. The total prize money is 20,000 yuan. I thought that the prize money would still be digested internally by our Triumph Club this time, but I didn't expect that a master would come out halfway. Huang Jun scratched his head and looked at Sun Yan and Xingqian, who looked like money lovers. Would a racing driver and a pilot girl with a cornering speed of 300 also be short of money? By the way, I have another question for you. What's the matter? I won't sell my pilot girl. Sun Yan's eyes condensed, and he quickly protected Xingqian behind him. Not the girl who bought the machine. Huang Jun said depressedly. I want to ask if you will participate in the Nox Rally in 4 days. Nox Rally? No. Sun Yan blinked. There is no need to participate in that kind of competition. Huang Jun and Pegasus looked at each other and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Xingqian huddled behind Sun Yan, her big blue eyes rolling around. Master is so bad, he actually lied. She thought to herself that lying is wrong. She also wants to learn from the master. Oh, the money was so much that it was worth it. I'm rich, I'm rich. Wow, Xingqian followed Sun Yan with 2 stacks of banknotes. Isn't it just 20,000 yuan? Sun Yan said helplessly. Look at your achievements. 20,000 yuan is a lot. Xingqian blinked his eyes. Master, do you know how much I was auctioned for? How much? 5,000 yuan. Sun Yan. 5,000 yuan is the price of a low-end car in the game. No wonder Tengyu, a small club, was able to buy Xingqian. He conservatively estimated that if Xingqian had no defects, the price would be at least 1,000 times higher. If this money is given to you as a reward, what are you going to buy with it? Reward me. Xingqian touched his chin, his eyes flashing with shrewdness. Of course I'll buy some awesome modules, and buy a racing suit for the master, and lots of delicious food, and save the rest in the small treasury, he. Xingqian counted on his fingers, calculating carefully. Sun Yan looked at his beach pants and flip-flops, and he really didn't look like a racer. But the money in Xingchen's hand was 20,000, not 200,000, which was a drop in the bucket for the racing industry. Let's go to the module store first. Oh wow, modules. Xingchen clenched his hands, his face full of expectation. Master, are you going to buy me a module? I'm really the happiest girl in the world. Sun Yan touched his nose. In his memory, modules seemed to be very expensive. In short, don't make a promise first, so as not to disappoint the girl later. The module store is located on the commercial street of Zhongcheng City. When Sun Yan and Xingchen arrived, there were already many mecha girls and racers in the store choosing modules. The Nox rally is coming soon, and the module market is booming. There are many types of modules, mainly 6 categories: engine module, steering module, nitrogen module, endurance module, structure module and special module. Modules are equivalent to the equipment of mecha girls, which can improve the attributes of mecha girls in a targeted manner. The common grades are divided into white, green, blue, purple, gold and diamond. The higher the grade, the rarer the module and the higher the price. Wow! As soon as he entered the store, Xingchen's eyes were focused on a purple grade module. There are no gold grade modules in the module store in Zhongcheng City, and there are no diamond modules. There are not many purple modules, and there are only 5 modules displayed on the counter. The module that Xingchen liked is called Blue Storm, which is a steering module. The module is introduced as increasing cornering ability to a moderate extent, and reducing stability and acceleration to a small extent. The price is marked below, and the string of zeros makes Sun Yan's scalp numb. Master, I feel that my cornering ability will be greatly improved after installing this module. Xingchen's pretty face is pressed against the glass, and her eyes are shining. Sun Yan thought, how can the improvement not be great? 850,000. He and Xingchen don't even have enough money to make a small difference. The module is only the size of a baby's fist, and Sun Yan can't understand why such a small thing can be sold for 850,000. As his eyes moved to Blue Storm, a virtual panel popped up. Curving, plus 20. Acceleration, minus 13. Stability, minus 8. Anti-collision, minus 2. Charge, plus 3. Obviously, these are the detailed properties of the Blue Storm module. No wonder it's purple quality. It can add 20 cornering attributes. This thing is simply a life-saving medicine for girls with poor cornering. Sun Yan was jealous of such a powerful module, but unfortunately he couldn't afford it. Master, we can't seem to afford this module. Xingchen obviously saw the price of the module. Her voice became smaller and smaller. She looked down at her toes, but she soon cheered up, stuck out her tongue, and smiled silly. Master, I will work hard in the future and make a lot of money for us. Then we can buy whatever we want. She looked around for other options. However, the modules in the store didn't seem to be available for 20,000 yuan. Those white grade modules are cheap, but the disadvantages are too great. For example, there is a white grade module called White Owl, which is introduced as slightly improving the cornering ability and greatly reducing the endurance. Who can stand this? Sun Yan couldn't bear to see his own girl looking pitiful. He looked mysterious. Said, Xingchen, I have a way to buy this module. What method? Xingchen came over with a face full of expectation. Have you heard of investment? Sun Yan said with a sly smile. As long as the owner of the module store sees our potential, maybe he will invest in us and let us get this module for free. Xingchen narrowed his eyes. Oh, as expected of a master, he can actually think of such a genius method. Sun Yan, that's it, thinking back to the past. Master, what does investment mean? Sun Yan. He briefly explained to Xingchen to let Xingchen understand the meaning of investment. Master, will we really not be kicked out by the boss directly? Xingchen was a little worried. No, who are we? Sun Yan pointed at himself and then at Xingchen. One is a future super racer, and the other is the future super racer's machine girl. Then the boss won't offer the entire module store with both hands. He was actually not sure, just wanted to try it. After all, in the previous life, I had come to him for investment. Although I don't have a high status now, Xingchen looks like a very high-level mecha girl. Maybe there is a chance. Oh wow, oh wow. Xingchen touched his chin and felt that it was settled. So the two of them went to the owner of the module store with great vigor and confidence. 5 minutes later, they were invited, out of the module store. If you don't have money, leave quickly and don't delay my business. The store owner had a cold face and stared at Sun Yan and Xingchen with impatience. You came to the module store for nothing. And Nox is scheduled to be the first. If you are the first in Nox, I will eat shit. Boss, you have to think clearly. Sun Yan narrowed his eyes. It's wrong to cheat and eat and drink. Once you miss this opportunity, you will miss this opportunity. That's right, if you don't want to invest, then don't invest. There's no need to be so rude. Xingchen pouted and glanced at the back of the store owner indignantly. She held Sun Yan's hand and said obediently, Master, only weak mecha girls need modules. I'm with you, we're strong and don't need modules. We'll never come to this store again. But your cornering is really weak. Xingchen stared at Sun Yan blankly, tilted his head, and smoke came out of his head. The racers and mecha girls nearby were confused. Hiss, there is such a thing. Young people nowadays really dare to think of anything. Hee, if he can successfully attract investment, I'll also go to the boss to make a deal. Sun Yan took Xingchen's hand and left. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west, cough cough. Anyway, he remembered this module store. Feng Shui will change. When he wins the first place in the Nox rally, won't the boss ask him to advertise? By then, it will be clear who is the master and who is the grandson. Xingchen, forget about the module. Let's practice hard today. We have a training match tomorrow. Okay, master. Xingchen came back to life from the dead state, clenched his fists, and waved them up and down with full energy, fighting. Fighting. Sun Yan and Xingchen left not long ago. A short figure walked into the module store. Boss, how much is this? The man pointed to a blue quality module. The module is called Hurricane, which can slightly improve cornering and air collection, but will also slightly reduce acceleration, stability and collision resistance. 300,000. The boss was still angry and didn't even raise his head. The visitor pursed his lips. Can it be cheaper? This thing was not this price before. Not even a cent less. It was the past. Now there are more racers, the production capacity has not kept up, so the price will naturally increase. If you don't need it, you can return it. As long as you don't open the package, you can return it at will. There is only one blue quality steering module. If you don't want it, there are many people who want it. Okay, then I'll take this one. The man didn't bargain with the boss. He paid the money, wrapped the Hurricane module with a cloth and stuffed it into his arms, turned back to look at the racing game video on the TV, and then turned around and left the module store. Chapter 11. The light from the computer screen was reflected on the wall. There were several boxes of unopened instant noodles scattered around, a racing suit, and a girl with a soft back lying on the bed reading a comic. The young man in front of the screen yawned, and his eyes became more lazy. Comet, the racers and girls in Zhongcheng are just a bunch of shit, you don't object to me saying that, right? The girl didn't even raise her eyes, and turned another page of the comic in her hand. Master, I've told you long ago that there's no need to come to Zhongcheng to fry fish. This behavior is boring. We might as well train more if we have this time. Comet, don't be so cold. The young man turned around, put his hands on the chair and stared at the girl's delicate profile. In a sense, we are also training when we fry fish, but the training tracks in Zhongcheng are a bit too simple. The young man's name is Li Yang, and he is the chief racer of the VVC Velocity Vision Club. In the past few days, he took the Robot Girl Comet to challenge many training games in Zhongcheng. I thought I could meet some decent opponents, but the expectation was as great as the disappointment. They came from the next big racing city, Tianyuan City. Compared with Tianyuan City, the racers and robot girls in Zhongcheng seemed too immature. Ding dong. The notification sound of the mobile phone next to her attracted Comet's attention. She picked it up and took a look, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but widen a little. There was a text message on the phone, from the nearby racing club community. A silver ghost with an average cornering speed of 300 km per hour appeared in the Triumph Club training match. There is another photo below, which is obviously a candid shot. In the photo, a petite girl is holding 2 stacks of banknotes with a happy face, looking like a little money grubber. Next to her is a slovenly man who looks handsome, but his beach pants and flip-flops make him look out of place at the entrance of the club full of racers and girls. Is it her? Why, do you know this girl? Li Yong leaned over to Comet and stared at his phone, and suddenly his eyes lit up. Sure, the average cornering speed is 300. This speed is comparable to yours. I didn't expect that there are really hidden masters in Zhongcheng. She is XC99. Comet's voice was cold. A scrap car, the 99th girl of our Xingchen family, but her steering ability is almost zero. Almost zero. Li Yong was stunned. Then how did she achieve a cornering speed of 300? I don't know, but the track of the Triumph Club is very simple, and none of the 3 big bends are less than 90 degrees. Maybe her racer is more skilled. Master, when is the latest training match? Comet suddenly sat up and looked at Li Yong. It's the day after tomorrow, the Bana Valley training race. What's wrong? I want to participate. Ah, don't you think it's boring? I think I can meet XC99 again. I want to tell her that a girl like her is not qualified to go on the track. Don't embarrass my star family. Comet's voice was chilling. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Li Yong even saw a hint of anger in Comet's eyes. Is there any feud between you? Li Yong also became serious. If this girl has any feud with Comet, he must help his girl. No feud, I just don't like it. Comet recalled last month, and accidentally saw the debut record of XC99. That bad turn actually hit the guardrail all the way to the finish line. Such a bad girl is still under the name of the Star family. I thought she would go back to the furnace after her debut, but she didn't expect that she was still so greedy that she contracted a racer. I don't know what kind of magic potion she gave the racer, and she didn't even want his life. If the XC99 causes the death of a racer due to a crash, rollover or other accidents during a race, then the Xingchen family will be tainted by her, which is absolutely unacceptable to Comet. Okay, then I'll sign up now. Li Yong was helpless. He didn't understand why Comet disliked the XC99. However, since it was Comet's request, as a driver he would try his best to meet it. It can only be considered that the racer and the girl are unlucky. The first thing Sun Yan did when he returned home was to tell Uncle Liang that he had won the training match. 20,000 yuan, it's really 20,000 yuan. Sun Yan, holding a stack of banknotes and waving them on Uncle Liang's left, Xingchen held another stack of banknotes and waving them on Uncle Liang's right. They were afraid that Uncle Liang would not see the 20,000 yuan. Enough. Do you two have ADHD? Uncle Liang slapped Sun Yan's hand away and said unhappily, isn't it just a training match of the Triumph Club? Isn't it normal to get a ranking in such a simple match? But you didn't say that before. Sun Yan touched Xingchen's head and said with a smile, now at least it proves that I do have the ability to control Xingchen. Although the turn is not good, this difficulty can be overcome through technology and continuous training. Uncle Liang sighed and turned his back. I don't bother to care about you, you should pass the driving qualification test first. Sun Yan knew that Uncle Liang had already given in, so his guilt towards Uncle Liang could be slightly relieved. Don't worry, I will definitely pass the driving license before the Nox rally. Grandpa Liang, I will work hard with Master. Xingchen clenched his fists, full of fighting spirit. Then let's go practice. Before leaving, Sun Yan remembered something and turned his head to mention it. Uncle Liang, isn't there a Bana Valley training match the day after tomorrow? Xingchen and I will participate. If you are free, you can come and see it. Haha, I'm busy. Uncle Liang's refusal was completely expected, and Sun Yan didn't force it. He took Xingchen's hand and left. Stinky boy, you didn't even close the door properly. Uncle Liang muttered helplessly, got up and closed the door. Sun Yan took Xingchen to an open space near the furnace. He had already planned the curve here with ice cream cones in advance, specifically for Xingchen's training. Xingchen, you have been on the track now. What did you gain from the track of the Triumph Club before, especially when turning? Sun Yan hasn't added MP points to Xingchen yet. He plans to add it when Xingchen is frustrated. Then Xingchen will succeed again, which will form a positive feedback and make it easier for her to build confidence. Oh wow, harvest. Xingchen touched his chin and frowned, and suddenly his eyes lit up and raised his hand. I have harvested. The master is very strong. The master's hands are very warm. The master's butt is very elastic. Sun Yan, it's not this harvest, but what you feel when you turn, such as grip, timing of turning, etc. Xingchen stared at Sun Yan blankly, his head slowly tilted to one side, and smoke began to come out of his head. Sun Yan held his forehead. He shouldn't have too many expectations of Xingqian. Forget it, let's practice directly. Xingqian, now I need you to try to turn without driving, and experience the feeling of turning firsthand, so that you can try to learn how to control yourself. Oh wow, Xingqian was instantly revived when she heard this. Professional terms are still too difficult for her, she still prefers to practice directly. Sun Yan pointed at the curve ahead, held Xingqian's shoulder, and whispered in her ear. See this curve more than 200 meters away from you. According to your intuition, can you feel where the breaking point is? Xingqian stared at the curve for a while with a serious face. Master, I have a feeling, I can definitely pass this curve. Very good. Sun Yan nodded with relief. Now you unfold the car body and go through the curve according to your feeling. Oh, Xingqian nodded seriously. In Sun Yan's encouraging eyes, she unfolded the car body and rushed out with a boom. Just like the master, prepare for the turn in advance. Xingqian's pretty face was serious, but how did the master operate before? She tilted her head, and her head was about to smoke again. Remember the feeling of turning. Before Sun Yan finished speaking, he saw that Xingqian's car body had rushed out of the curve and hit a row of ice cream cones into the sky. Oh my god, brake. You're going to hit the wall. Ah, master. It was too late. Sun Yan could only listen to Xingqian's screams and watch her bang her head against the wall. Quote. He took a deep breath. Amitabha, the 4 elements are empty. Sure enough, I'll just give her MP points today. Let's rest for a night and practice tomorrow. Sun Yan thought to himself, if he couldn't rely on training to improve Xingqian's attributes in a short period of time, then he must win the training match the day after tomorrow, and there can't be any mistakes. The weather was very hot, but the weather was very hot. Xingqian, get up. The training match is about to start. Sun Yan opened Xingqian's room but didn't see Xingqian. Today is the 3rd day since leaving Tengyu Club. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the Bana Valley training match will start on time. After training for a whole day yesterday, Sun Yan basically didn't rest except for eating. He almost gave up because Xingqian's cornering attribute only increased by 0.1. Now the attribute is 22.1. At that time, he saw that Xingqian's attribute had only increased by that much. In addition, he had been training so much that he was in danger of fainting from hunger at any time. Sun Yan simply let Xingqian go back to rest. Where is Xingqian? There was only a shark doll in the room to sleep with him. On the table was an open notebook with a ferocious little man in flip-flops drawn on it. Next to the little man was a girl crying with an ice cream bucket on her head, and behind it was a row of crooked small characters, handbrake plus downshift plus steering wheel plus accelerator equals drift. I actually copied it 100 times. Sun Yan's face changed. Although he was more strict yesterday, Xingqian's personality should not be so bad as to run away. Besides, Xingqian and he are core imprints, so they can't escape. What are you howling about so early in the morning? Uncle Liang came out of the bathroom in his pajamas, with toothpaste foam still on the corners of his mouth. Hey, Uncle Liang, it's so early today. Have you seen Xingqian? That girl ran out in the middle of the night last night. I guess she went to practice turning secretly. Uncle Liang wiped his face with a towel. Go to the nearby training ground to find her. Sun Yan put on a coat and took a bottle of high-energy nutrient solution and went out. On the way, he bought Xingqian's favorite buns, thinking that if he couldn't find her later, he would seduce Xingqian out like a kitten or a puppy. He ran to the nearby training ground and saw that Xingqian was lying on the ground in a big shape. There were ice cream cones that were knocked away everywhere, and tire marks left by turning. Sun Yan sighed. Why is this girl drooling when she sleeps? He moved closer and looked at Xingqian's cute sleeping face, and his heart couldn't help but soften. Although he is a fool, he unexpectedly knows how to work hard. Hoo-hoo, master, turning and hitting takoyaki, oh. Sun Yan, what is this girl doing in her dream? Go-karting. Xingqian, the training match is about to start, it's time to get up. Sun Yan poked Xingqian's elastic face. Training match. Xingqian opened her eyes suddenly, sat up from the ground like a corpse, and her long hair fell messily on her face. Oh, yes, training match. She covered her face in panic. It's over, I overslept. Master, what time is it now? It's 8:30 now, we still have time to go there. Sun Yan helplessly held his forehead. You practiced turning here all night. That's right. Xingqian smiled, took Sun Yan's hand and came to a tire mark, and said proudly, Master, look, this is the 90-degree turn I took by myself, look at the perfect burn mark, look at the perfect turning point. So, what about the turning speed? Sun Yan had no expression. Ah, the turning speed, the speed is 100, a little more than 100, a little bit. Xingqian shrank his head, and his voice became smaller and smaller. Cornering speed of over 100 is nothing to brag about compared to Sun Yan's 300. Sun Yan didn't care. He smiled and touched Xingqian's head. It's pretty good that you can do 100. You have to keep working hard in the future. Oh wow, I didn't expect to get the master's praise in the morning. She is really the happiest girl in the world. Xingqian blushed and rubbed Sun Yan's hand. Suddenly she sniffed and her eyes lit up. What did the master bring? It smells so good. I bought the buns on the way, and the same bottle of high-energy nutrient solution as your AD calcium. Sun Yan raised his pocket, which was full of meat buns the size of an adult's palm, a full 8. Time is tight, let's go to the stadium first, you can eat while walking to restore your endurance. Oh wow, master, I want to eat 6. Bana Valley training match, as the name suggests, is held in Bana Valley in Zhongcheng City. Originally, Bana Valley was a resort, but was later bought by a boss who loved racing. He dismantled the entire project in Bana Valley and rebuilt it into a very classic racetrack. The 43-kilometer track has straight lines, curves, and uphill and downhill slopes. It can be said that it is small but complete. Many racers will bring their girls to Bana Valley for training when they have nothing to do, because the configuration of this track is equivalent to a castrated version of the regular competition. Sun Yan and Xingqian almost came on time. Fortunately, they had registered in advance and did not need too many procedures. They could enter directly after giving their identity certificates and receiving the number plate. When Sun Yan found a good position, Xingqian still had an unfinished bun in his mouth. The weather is not bad today. Sun Yan glanced at the sky and felt more relaxed than ever before. Bana Valley has 4 curves. The difficulty is the last 45-degree hairpin bend. After the hairpin bend is a long-distance sprint of 3 kilometers. Before the MP points were allocated, Sun Yan felt that it might be a bit difficult to pass this bend with his own skills. But now he thinks it is not a big problem. Is good weather good for me? Xingqian blinked his big eyes and looked up at the sky. Of course, it's not good for you to turn on rainy days, and the road surface is too slippery and the tire's grip will decrease. Then I hope it doesn't rain today. Xingqian put his hands together and prayed to the sky. Don't worry, Sun Yan smiled. I checked the weather forecast this morning, there is no rain. Race driver number 32 applies to change the starting order. The prompt sound of the radio suddenly sounded. Xingqian was stunned and pulled Sun Yan's newly bought racing suit trouser pocket. Hey, master, can the starting order be changed? Yes. Sun Yan was also very puzzled. But usually it is changed from front to back, no one is willing to change to the front. Why? Because the car in front is equivalent to automatically taking on the task of a road sweeper, sweeping away all the stones or small obstacles on the road, so that the car behind is not likely to have problems. This is completely making wedding clothes for others, but I don't care when I start. Oh, so that's the case, master is so knowledgeable. Sun Yan, it's obviously you who are stupider. As they were chatting, Sun Yan and Xingqian saw the staff of the Bana Valley training race coming over with a man and a woman. The man had an ordinary appearance but a confident look and a big smile on his face. The girl next to him had flowing silver hair and a tall figure, and both of them had VVC badges on their racing suits. Mr. Li Yang, are you sure you want to change to the number 10 starting position? The staff was respectful and smiling. Why are you asking so many questions? Just change it when I tell you to. Li Yang said impatiently. What he hated most was these little people, who had no skills, talked a lot, and always had to act cautiously, which was disgusting. Sun Yan glanced at his starting order, which was no. 9. Bana Valley is a competitive track with 2 parking spaces, which means that these 2 will start with him and Xingqian later. The staff did not dare to neglect it and quickly registered the 2 before leaving. Is it them? Li Yong asked Comet next to him, his eyes mainly focused on Sun Yan. He looked decent in his racing suit, but his shoes were just ordinary flat shoes, which looked a bit old. With such shabby equipment, could such a person really drive at a cornering speed of 300? Comet didn't answer, but just crossed his arms and looked at Xingchen indifferently. Xingchen also stared at Comet with his eyes wide open, with more curiosity in his eyes. Where did this mecha girl seem to have seen before? She suddenly remembered the debut of the Intelligent Machine Island, with a silver sports car leading the way and a figure riding away in the dust. During that time, this figure once became her longing and beacon. Ah, I remember it. Her eyes lit up, and she pointed at Comet with a face full of surprise like a little fan who saw a star. You are XC76. Xingchen's limited pink made with double scissor hands. The new car is the 76th car born in the Xingchen family of the Intelligent Island. In a sense, the identity of XC76 is equivalent to the predecessor of Xingchen. The model does not represent the strength of the machine girl, and there are no 98 cars in front of Xingchen. As long as the machine girl dies or goes back to the furnace, the model will disappear. All the models of the machine girls are unique. In front of Xingchen, many machine girls with poor talents are those who were eliminated in the competition and abandoned by the drivers have chosen to go back to the furnace and self-destruct. Xingchen felt like seeing her childhood idol when she saw XC76. At that time, she was just an intelligent core that absorbed knowledge from the outside world, and she didn't even have a body of a machine girl. Seeing that Xingchen seemed to know the other party's robot girl, Sun Yan was ready to eat some melon seeds, but he felt that the other party's robot girl's eyes were not right. Then the robot girl suddenly raised her hand and slapped Xingchen's hand away with a bad attitude. Who taught you to point at strangers casually? It turns out that a scrap car is a scrap car. You don't even have basic manners. Xingchen was stunned. It took a long time for her to react that the two adjectives, scrap car, that were extremely insulting to the robot girl were referring to her. Sun Yan put away his thoughts of watching the show and his eyes were serious. Although he didn't know what the relationship between Xingchen and the robot girl in front of him was, Xingchen was obviously friendly and happy to see the robot girl when he saw her, just like seeing his sister, plus Xingchen's name for the robot girl, XC76, obviously the same model as Xingchen. But now, a robot girl who is regarded as an elder pointed at her nose and said it was a scrap car. This kind of blow is no different from Ultraman telling you in person, "Wake up, kid, there is no light in this world, it's all leather suits." Hey, when you say others are junk cars, shouldn't you examine yourself? Sun Yan looked at Comet indifferently, blocking Xingchen in front. Comet didn't say anything, didn't even look at Sun Yan, and ignored him directly. In her opinion, Sun Yan and Xingchen were birds of a feather, a girl who couldn't even turn, and a driver who came to participate in the competition in flip-flops. This combination is a complete blasphemy against the sacred sport of racing. Don't treat the competition as a joke. What? Sun Yan frowned. Comet stared at the girl huddled behind Sun Yan, and continued to speak expressionlessly. XC99, a girl like you who can't even turn should not participate in the competition, lest you kill this man and leave a stain on our Xingchen family. Shut up. Sun Yan took 2 steps forward and clenched his fist. If the girl said one more word, he couldn't guarantee whether he would punch her. Even though he knew he couldn't beat the mecha girl, after all, Xingchen had performed a forehead-splitting trick, and other mecha girls were no less capable. Hey, brother, don't be angry. Li Yong stood in front of Sun Yan, glanced at Sun Yan's fist and said with a smile, "The mecha girls' problems should be solved by the mecha girls themselves, and we pilots shouldn't interfere. Brother, do you smoke?" 1. Although his own mecha girl's words were a bit hurtful, she was his own mecha girl after all, who would he help if not Comet? He took out a cigarette and handed it to Sun Yan, but Sun Yan didn't take it. Is this how you educate your daughter? Sun Yan took a deep breath. If you don't know how to educate, I can help you educate her. Educate. It seems that you are very confident in your racing skills. Li Yang's raised mouth corners slightly turned down, and his eyes flashed with coldness. He hated this kind of words the most. In this case, we just start together, why don't we compete on the track? Please prepare for the start of number 9 and no. 10. Countdown 30 seconds. The prompt sound of the radio sounded, but it still couldn't ease the tense atmosphere between the two. Master, the training match is about to start, let's get ready. Sun Yan felt that his clothes were pulled, and Xingqian's calm voice came from behind him. Xingqian, Master. Xingqian pulled Sun Yan's clothes again, with a little more force. Let's get ready. The girl was less than 1.6 meters tall, she lowered her head, and her silver bangs covered her eyes. Sun Yan saw wet liquid rolling down her cheeks and chin. Master. She was choking and could hardly speak. Okay, unfold. Sun Yan pursed his lips. He knew what Xingqian needed now. As soon as the words fell, Xingqian immediately threw herself into his arms and unfolded the car body. Li Yong and Wei Xing looked at each other and unfolded the car body. It was a sports car very similar to Xingqian, but compared to Xingqian's slightly rounded front, the other girl's front was sharper, just as aggressive as her mouth. Xingqian, who was wrapped in steel in the car body, seemed to be more stable. When Sun Yan held the joystick, Xingqian suddenly looked back at Sun Yan. Her bangs fell to both sides, revealing her eyes full of tears and grievances. Master, I want to win today, I must win. Even if it's just a training match. Okay. Sun Yan nodded heavily. I will definitely help you win today. Please prepare the racer and the girl, the last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8. Sun Yan put down the handbrake expressionlessly, looking at the track with cold eyes. He was holding back a fire in his heart, and he needed to vent it urgently. The body of Xingqian was agitated, and the roar of the engine module made her ears buzz. Sun Yan knew that Xingqian was also angry. She was really bad at cornering. She was stupid and poorly educated. She was like an unpopular underclassman in a world full of mecha girls, but she worked really hard, turning again and again, and never got tired of repeating thousands of times. 3, 2, 1. Beep. Boom. Xingqian and Comet rushed out almost side by side. Both Li Yong and Sun Yan had professional reflex speed. But soon Sun Yan ejection start technique allowed Xingqian to surpass Comet by 5 body lengths. This scene shocked Comet and Li Yong, who was driving Comet. What's going on? How can their starting speed be so fast? Li Yong helped but recall the strange whistling of Xingqian engine a few seconds before the start. I take back what I said about the driver. Comet's calm voice, which has never changed, sounded in front. Although the driver was wearing flip-flops and looked sloppy, he was really good. I was wrong. He had a technique that we didn't know about. Even the technique we didn't know about. Li Yong couldn't believe it. He is the ace of the VVC club. VVC is not a no-name club. It is a serious club that can be ranked in the world. Although he is only a goalkeeper in the top 500, his gold content is still very high. What technique can't he learn? As a result, when he came to Zhongcheng City to fry fish, a wild driver who didn't have a club actually had new technology. Impossible. Could he be an intelligent mechanic like me? Li Yong still didn't believe it. No, Comet said affirmatively. I didn't feel the psychic energy when I started. Li Yong showed an expression of doubt about life, but at this time the distance between Comet and Xingqian had not continued to widen. Master, don't worry. Comet tilted his head slightly. That driver is great, but the XC99 is just a useless car with turning obstacles. They will naturally slow down when they enter the curve. After 2 turns, they won't even be able to see our taillights, I promise. The speed of this robot is not slow. Sun Yan glanced at the rearview mirror. He thought that the ejection start would give him enough advantages, but now it seems that it is not the case. The other party seemed to be well prepared. Whether it was changing the starting order or provoking him, he was just looking for trouble. She is XC76. Xingqian took over Sun Yan's words. She debuted with the first place in her debut a year ago. She went to a very good club and is very strong. Moreover, the robot girls of the Xingqian family are all talented in straight lines. Xingqian family. Yes, master, you can understand that we are all the same type of robot girls. Sun Yan was stunned. Isn't this similar to the brand of the car? In the previous life, apart from the different logos, all big-name cars had obvious anchor features, such as BMW's double-kidney grille, commonly known as pig nose. That means you may not have the advantage in speed compared to the XC76. I think so. She won't be much slower than me. Sun Yan frowned. Could it be that the girl machine also has a special ability similar to the Emperor engine? In that case, today's training match might be a bit dangerous. Even if it was almost a straight charge, he didn't dare to give Xingqian full gas casually. He knew very well how terrifying Xingqian's speed was when it was full gas. It was a monster that he couldn't control at all. When he encountered a curve, he could only take his hands off the steering wheel and close his eyes to pray to Taisheng Laojun to leave him a whole body. In the rearview mirror, Sun Yan could no longer see the complete body of the girl machine. She had already surrounded it from the right side. Master, Xingqian's anxious voice came to his ears. Sun Yan knew that Xingqian was unwilling to be surpassed by the XC-76. Don't worry, let her pass you. Master, I can still speed up. I know, but we have to consider the curve. The first curve of Bana Valley is an uphill cliff. There are no guardrails around. You have to take this into account. If we fall down, we will have no chance at all. Xingqian gritted her teeth. She knew that Sun Yan was right. She just hated why she didn't practice more and why she was lazy the night before yesterday. If she practiced for a day like yesterday, would she be more confident in turning? Only Sun Yan knew the answer was no. Because he could clearly see Xingqian's attributes, yesterday's progress was quite big. The curve attribute increased by 0.4, and now it is 22.5, but it is still not enough for normal turning. According to his calculations, to reach the standard of normal racing in the previous life, the curve needs to reach at least 60 points, and this is only a relatively safe value. After all, Xingqian's speed cannot be regarded as an ordinary racing car. Master, we have surpassed that car. Comet's voice was neither sad nor happy. Li Yong glanced at the rearview mirror. Isn't this a normal thing? Your speed at full gas has left many girls far behind. The first curve is coming soon. 300 uphill followed by a right turn. Master, this is a 3/4 circle curve. I'm going to slow down. Li Yong nodded. In his cognition, turning is to slow down, and the difference between an expert and a rookie is that an expert can fully utilize the width and length of the curve and accurately calculate the critical cornering speed. It seems simple to say, but if it is not done well, either the car will be overtaken too slowly, or it will hit the guardrail or run off the track. Li Yong has long left the stage of the primary track like Knox. He is going all out to impact the national competition. His future goal is to go global and take Comet to world class. It doesn't matter if Comet has no special abilities. He is an intelligent mechanic and he can make up for Comet's shortcomings. Calculating the critical cornering speed depends entirely on track experience, which is already a common thing for him. So when will you slow down? Li Yong glanced at Sun Yan and Xingqian, who were closely following behind in the rearview mirror. At the moment when Comet slowed down, Sun Yan controlled Xingqian to catch up, and the two girls almost ran side by side. Li Yong looked at the side in astonishment. In the car window, Sun Yan had a cold face and looked at the track indifferently. He did not slow down. Xingqian easily overtook in the violent roar of the engine. Are they crazy? Why not slow down? Li Yong was stunned. There is a cliff ahead. Just angry. After all, not mature enough. Comet snorted coldly. It doesn't matter. If she falls, the XC-99 will be directly recycled. The height of the cliff at the first bend in Bana Valley is not fatal. If she tries her best to save the man will not fall to death, but he will definitely sit in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Quote. Just then, a sharp brake sound suddenly came from the front. The sharp hissing made Li Yong and Comet feel a chill on their backs. Then they saw an unforgettable scene. The Xingqian, which had already surpassed them by 6 or 7 parking spaces, suddenly shifted its body, and the rear of the car swung outward at the moment of entering the bend. The terrifying inertia caused the tires to rub sparks and 4 burning black marks on the ground, and the air was filled with the smell of burning rubber. What is this? Li Yong swallowed hard. Inside the Xingqian car, Comet didn't speak, and only her gasping voice could be heard. Inside the Xingqian car, Sun Yan glanced at the rearview mirror and controlled the steering wheel coldly, making the front of the Xingqian car present a standard 90-degree angle with the tangent of the curve, and the rear wheels locked. Until the Xingqian car body was parallel to the straight track after drifting through the nearly 270-degree curve, the gear ratio brought by the downshift was finally released, allowing the engine module to burst out with terrifying torque power at this moment. Full gas, out of the curve. Sun Yan's command made Xingqian's accelerator pressed to the bottom. The tires rubbed against the ground frantically to gain grip, and the speed caught up with the speed of entering the curve within 1 second. A full-speed drift was completed smoothly, and Xingqian jumped out more than 100 meters like a wild horse. At this time, Li Yong and Comet had just left the curve. "Oh, Master, I feel like I can win," Xingqian cheered excitedly. As the XC-76 accelerated, the distance between them had widened completely. Although this distance gap was still possible for the XC-76 to catch up. But Xingqian had witnessed Sun Yan's miraculous cornering more than once. If there were a few more corners, wouldn't the XC-76 be left behind without a trace? "You feel what I feel." Quote. Sun Yan touched Xingqian's head and chuckled. Now that Xingqian's cornering attribute has reached 22.5, it is still difficult to control, but it is much better than the previous 7-point attribute. In the past, when he drifted, he felt that Xingqian might lose control at any time, but now he can at least feel the critical speed of losing control. If the arrogant racer and the rude girl behind him only have that much ability, he and Xingqian will definitely win this training match. However, just when Sun Yan had this thought, a thunder suddenly came from the sky. Xingqian in front was obviously also startled, and the car body shook. "Master, you say, is it going to rain today?" she said weakly. Sun Yan was hairy all over, and slapped Xingqian on the butt. "Shut up." Quote. The weather forecast was very good. I had already checked the weather forecast before I went out. Although it was not very accurate, Sun Yan felt that he had done good deeds in his previous life, and he was so rich that he had no trouble with a woman. He should not be so unlucky in this life. But the thunderclouds gradually accumulated in the sky in the distance told him that things were not that simple. As the saying goes, can a thunderstorm, a rain that disappears as soon as it hits, be considered rain? So the weather forecast was still very accurate. It was just that Xingqian's bad words came true. "Xingqian, we must finish the training match before it rains, otherwise our cornering speed must be reduced." Sun Yan's tone was serious, but he did not hear Xingqian's response. Xingqian was sticking his butt out without looking at the road, with his hands clasped together and his head bowed, mumbling. He got closer and heard it clearly. "Bulu bulu bu, bulu bulu bang. Don't rain, mommy mommy coax. God of racing bless me." Sun Yan. He slapped Xingqian's butt again with his backhand. "Look at the road. Idiot." "Oh, I know, master. Don't spank people's butts." Sun Yan thought he could only touch his butt. "But it feels really good." "Master, it's going to rain." Comet could already smell the dampness in the air. The weather forecast said there would be no rain, and the sun was hanging in the sky, which was an emergency for all the girls and drivers. This is the charm of racing. Li Yang's mouth curled up. From the moment we stepped onto the track, none of us knew what special situations we would encounter. Everything depends on ourselves. That's right, but if it rains, the road surface will be wet, which is a disadvantage for the XC-99. Comet said. "It's not an advantage for you either." Li Yong responded. "Thanks to the steering module you installed for me before, the rain has little impact on me." Comet narrowed his eyes, although he didn't know what technology Xingqian and Sun Yan relied on to surpass them on the curve before. But the current situation is developing in a direction that is favorable to them. And she is sure that the XC-99 is still the XC-99 that was bruised and swollen in the debut. Her poor turning performance is definitely impossible to improve in a short time, and her driver is not like a super rich man who can take out a diamond-level module. Comet, I have seen it clearly just now. When the machine girl turned, the wheels had lost grip with the road. This is to use the handbrake and inertia to adjust the position of the body. Anyone who can play this technique is definitely a genius. Li Yang's tone was full of amazement. Although he didn't want to admit it, Sun Yan's operation really made him feel inferior. As expected of the master, he can actually see the opponent's skills at a glance. Comet accelerated with full gas, trying to get closer to Xingqian. "So, can we replicate their cornering?" "No," Li Yong shook his head. "I have never used this technique. It is definitely a brand new system. If you use that technique, I have to recalculate your speed, timing of entering the corner, and braking point. If you use it rashly, there may be problems. We can only go back and try after this training match." "Okay, Master, get ready to enter the next corner. The brake sound came from the front again, and it was that beautiful tailspin again. Even though they had seen it once, Li Yong and Comet still felt their scalps tingling when they saw it for the second time. The feeling of dancing on the edge of losing control was equally frightening to the audience, and the blood in their bodies seemed to boil. The opponent was not only playing with speed, but also an art. After passing the 90-degree turn, the distance between Comet and Star was widened again. The roar of propellers came from the air, and a helicopter caught up at some point. The cabin was opened, and an uncle was holding a camera, filming the stars and comets flying on the track. Who is that person? Comet glanced at the sky unhappily. She didn't like the feeling of being exposed to the camera. That's the developer of the Bana Valley track, Li Yong said helplessly. He also provided the bounty for the training match. The first place is a full 100,000 yuan, and there are also bounties for the second and third places. For the sake of money, let him have a taste of being a commentator. Comet said, disdainfully, but didn't say anything else. The uncle on the helicopter was indeed explaining, and the picture in the camera was the same as the big one outside Bana Valley. The screens were connected, and now the outside was full of people watching the game. Welcome everyone to my Bana Valley training ground. The screen now shows the two fastest turning speeds of the mecha girls. One of them is Li Yong and Comet from the famous VVC club, and the other is the new mecha girl Xingqian and her master, the most handsome man in the world. The uncle was confused by the name, and he whispered to the staff next to him, "Are the names correct?" "No, boss, that person is called this name." Confirming that it was correct, the uncle could only bite the bullet and continue to explain. Comet, XC76 Mecha Girl, the current average turning speed is 285. So fast, she is worthy of being a racer from the VVC club, unbelievable. Yeah, if my mecha girl is half as fast as hers, it would be great. A burst of discussion broke out around the big screen outside Bana Valley. Uncle Liang unscrewed the iced black tea and drank it calmly. The XC76 had a good reputation last year, and it was completely expected that it could run such a cornering speed. Xingqian, XC99, the average cornering speed is 332. Puff, Uncle Liang sprayed all the iced black tea. Duo Xiao, 332. Is this the data that Sun Yan and Xingqian can run? He didn't watch the previous training match of the Triumph Club. He thought that Sun Yan and Xingqian were just a blind cat that hit a dead mouse. Now it seems that Sun Yan really has some skills. As for Xingqian, it is still a girl who is unreliable in turning, so the speed is something to look forward to. The people around were no less shocked than Uncle Liang. The cornering speed of more than 300 basically does not appear in the training match. Many of the onlookers and racers looked as if they had seen a ghost when they saw Xingqian's average cornering speed on the data board. Li Yong is obviously here to fish. Are the other group also fish players? Xingqian and the most handsome man in the world. I've never heard of them. I don't know if they have a club. Wouldn't it be fine to ask them after they finish the training match? Several small club owners in the crowd were thinking about how to poach people later. And at this moment of great attention, Xingqian and Comet were about to enter the third bend one after the other. Comet had obvious deceleration and gradually distanced itself from Xingqian. And Xingqian was moving forward like an arrow from a string. They don't slow down. Many onlookers couldn't help but stand up. Some girls even covered their eyes and dared not watch the next scene. If they went up at this speed, they would definitely not have the reaction time to turn, and the final result would be to crash into the nearby mountain wall. What does this brat want to do? Why doesn't he slow down? Slow down. Uncle Liang's eyes were bloodshot, and the bottle of iced black tea in his hand was squeezed into a ball. Even the uncle who was explaining on the helicopter held his breath and lost his voice at this moment. Squeak. A sharp roar sounded under the tires of Xingqian, and it also resounded through everyone's soul. At the 60-degree angle turn, Xingqian almost drifted past the edge of the track. This scene only flashed on the screen, and when people came to their senses, Xingqian had already left. There was silence in front of the big screen at the entrance of the Bana Valley Raceway. After a short silence, there was a more heated emotion and discussion. What was that just now? I seem to see Xingqian's machine moving horizontally. Can it turn like this? I forgot to record it. Why is the screen not moving? What is the photographer doing? The uncle on the helicopter was already dumbfounded. All he could see were the black tire marks on the curve, and the 4 intertwined black lines seemed to be reflected in his soul. He has loved racing since he was a child, but he couldn't say what he liked about it. He also had a lot of expensive mechas, but his personal skills were too poor. The best he ever did was only 27th place in the Knox Rally. Later, he never raced again. He always felt that something was missing in his heart. Instead, he was obsessed with watching the race. Now, seeing Xingqian's soul-shattering cornering performance, he suddenly understood what he was missing after the Knox Rally. Passion and courage. The uncle clenched his fists. It turns out that I don't want to race anymore, but the frustration has worn away my courage and passion. Off the court, this kid. Uncle Liang breathed a sigh of relief, and his hand holding the drink bottle slowly loosened. Why didn't you say so earlier with such amazing skills? It seems that the module was bought in vain. Everyone was praising Sun Yan and Xingqian's wonderful cornering. Even Comet and Li Yong. There was also a lot of anger in my heart. Only Sun Yan looked solemn at this moment. Because just a second ago, a drop of water hit the glass with a pop. It was raining. The worst situation still happened, but we have only completed half of the Bana Valley track. Although we have passed 3 bends, the large section of the track after that is just a slope and some gentle bends that are not even bends, but Sun Yan clearly remembers that the most difficult hairpin bend on the Bana Valley track is on a cliff less than 1 kilometer away from the finish line. Master, what should I do? The rain is getting heavier. Sun Yan can feel the panic in Xingqian's tone. Obviously, this girl knows that the rain is a huge test for her turning. God's will cannot be violated. Sun Yan pursed his lips. We have to find a way to distance ourselves from the other girl on the next straight line. The last hairpin turn is too difficult for you. We must slow down. If it's not raining, we have to reduce the speed to less than 200. Now it's raining and the road is slippery. For safety reasons, I will suppress the speed to about 100 when turning. 100 turning speed. Xingqian widened his eyes. Wouldn't that be too slow? What do you think a hairpin turn is? It's an angle of less than 45 degrees or even lower. He was about to reach out and touch Xingqian's butt, but he thought that Xingqian seemed a little shy before, so he retracted it. After all, the girl is a girl. He used to treat the Jade 786 as a racing car in the Tengyu Club, which led to Zhang Kai finding such a shameful reason to expel him. This kind of expulsion record will be filed. If he goes to other clubs in the future and the records are retrieved, they will look at him with strange eyes. Oh, it sounds difficult. Xingqian had never tried it before, and had no idea about that kind of curve, but she was very confident in Sun Yan, and smiled and said, but if it's master, he will definitely take me through it. Of course, it's no problem for Sun Yan to turn, but he still remembered that he told Xingqian that he would win today. The girl behind him who was biting and not letting go was indeed a tough opponent, but Xingqian had hardly gone full speed on the track. Anyway, you have to slow down at the hairpin, so there's no need to hide it anymore. Sun Yan glanced at the rearview mirror and filled up the gas. The roar of Xingqian's excellent acceleration engine instantly filled the track and echoed in the valley. Xingqian's speed was getting faster and faster, and the distance from the Comet was gradually widening. They are so fast. Comet gritted her teeth and struggled. Master, are you sure you gave me full gas? Li Yong spread his hands. Yes, what else? Comet's pretty face was embarrassed and red to her ears. She said before that she would leave Xingqian behind in 2 turns. As a result, they were still fighting hard after 3 turns, and now they are even behind. It was the first time that Li Yong saw his own mecha girl being defeated, especially her earlobes were so red, and he couldn't help but smile. This XC99 doesn't seem to be as bad as you said, at least it has good performance in straight lines. Humph, Comet said unconvinced. It's the steering module you bought. It's good to use, but it also has a great impact on acceleration. Otherwise, how could I be left behind by that newcomer? Li Yong, that's not what Comet said just now. Sure enough, the mecha girl is also a woman, and she changes her face faster than turning a book. It's not a big problem. We still have a chance. Li Yong comforted him, saying, the cornering technique they use is indeed advanced, but the friction generated by wheel locking will be greatly affected when it rains. Now we are going to play it safe and wait for the last hairpin. Comet took a deep breath and adjusted her mentality, trying to maximize her straight line ability. When she calmed down, the speed at which she distanced herself from Xingqian was not so fast. The helicopter followed behind, and the uncle came back to his senses from the shock of the previous corner, and his commentary became more passionate. Audience, you can see that our VVC player who was left behind by the newcomer has calmed down. She is worthy of the quality of the international club's pilot girl. If I had gone up, my mentality would have collapsed. The crowd in front of the screen outside Bana Valley burst into laughter. This is the difference between the pilot girl and ordinary racing cars. The pilot girl and the racer determine the overall quality of the car at the same time. The pilot girl is a car and a creature with emotions. Her emotions can also affect the speed. A depressed mecha girl's attributes will be weakened, while a high-spirited mecha girl may break through herself in the game and burst out with potential that she can't even imagine. All this requires the racer as a driver and the mecha girl as a teammate. The characteristics of thunderstorms are heavy rainfall in a short period of time mixed with thunder and lightning. As the race progressed, the thunderstorms reached their peak and the entire track was soaked by rain. At the end of Sun Yan's vision, he could see the cliff through the rain curtain. At the same time, Xingqian's road book also sounded, "Master, 400 left hairpin bend to connect to the downhill." The sound of the wheels slipping on the track was mixed in the rain curtain. Although it was extremely chaotic, it was extremely clear to Sun Yan. It's time to slow down. Sun Yan squeezed the joystick. Xingqian was very obedient and immediately slowed down. As soon as her speed dropped, Comet, who maintained the original speed, naturally caught up with the gap between the two. They really slowed down. Comet's mouth curled up. "Master, the rain really has a great impact on them." Li Yong took a deep breath. Even a professional racer like him had to be prepared for the hairpin bend in Bana Valley. He didn't say anything, and in less than 3 seconds he had calculated the best cornering point and speed for Comet. At this time, they were already on par with Xingqian. Through the rain, Li Yong and Sun Yan on the opposite side looked at each other, and the corners of their lips curled up slightly. The technique is good, but it's a pity that the steering performance of the machine girl is too poor. It will be difficult to speed up and overtake after the corner. Li Yang's eyes were very calm, but the calmness was accompanied by the arrogance and provocation of his status. The moment he missed his eyes, Sun Yan's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Xingqian, are you afraid of pain?" He spoke quickly. "Do you want to win more, or are you more afraid of pain?" Xingqian didn't hesitate at all. "Master, I want to win. I'm afraid of pain, but I'm more afraid of being looked down upon." "Okay." Sun Yan stared at the guardrail on the edge of the cliff. "Speed up." "Yes," Xingqian roared without hesitation. Perhaps too many girls lost control of the most difficult hairpin bend in Bana Valley, so the developer finally built a solid guardrail on this cliff. The guardrail was covered with traces of impact, all of which indicated difficulty and danger. Xingqian suddenly accelerated, the tires slipped violently in the rainstorm, and the whole body twisted abnormally. Comet and Li Yong next to him widened their eyes, and the uncle on the helicopter trembled, and the camera almost fell off. In front of the screen outside the Bana Valley track, some people held umbrellas, and some people just stood in the rain, staring at the screen and holding their breath. Uncle Liang clenched his right wrist and subconsciously covered his chest. Everyone had a thought in their mind. What do they want to do? This is the XC-76 Comet. The car was in a state of panic, but the driver was still in a state of panic. The sudden acceleration made Xingqian's car completely out of control, and the wheels rubbed wildly on the ground, but she couldn't control the car. Sun Yan gritted his teeth. To him, Xingqian seemed to have returned to the time when she only had 7 drift attributes. He was not driving a car, but a mad bull. He read the dizzy and confused emotions from Xingqian. Obviously, this girl had been knocked out by him. Sun Yan felt helpless, but he didn't blame her. Controlling the car itself was his job as a driver. Xingqian could get dizzy, but he couldn't. As the world spun, the surrounding scenery frantically passed by in his vision. Then the car body hit something with a bang. This short pause gave Xingqian's out-of-control car body a little breathing time. At this time, Sun Yan also locked his vision and the track in front. As he calculated, this wave of collision was dangerous but helped him correct the direction of Xingqian's car body. And Xingqian also woke up with a sharp pain in her buttocks. Full gas, turn. Sun Yan's steady voice was in her ears. Her mind was blank, but she subconsciously followed Sun Yan's instructions to complete all operations. The engine roared, and the car body shook left and right and then regained stability. They turned almost at the same time as Comet, and even the speed was not much different, which could be compensated. Hey, isn't it? Li Yong opened his mouth so wide that he could stuff a durian in it. This special code is also possible. Comet was directly silenced. The accident happened too quickly, so she didn't know what to say. She just kept replaying the scene she just saw in her mind. She couldn't see the whole thing from her perspective, but she couldn't understand even if she only saw the tip of the iceberg. The only people who saw the whole hairpin turn were the uncle in the helicopter and the people outside the screen of the Bana Valley Raceway. This brat, do you want to scare me to death? Uncle Liang was so angry that he threw the bottle of iced black tea on the ground, holding his chest with his left hand and supporting his knees with his right hand for a long time. Too risky, it's just a training match, if you lose, you lose. You have to show off. When they come back, they must be punished. He took a deep breath, recalled the thrilling scene just now, and couldn't help but admire Sun Yan as a genius. You can actually use the track guardrail to correct the car body, much better than I was back then. Just now, Sun Yan suddenly accelerated when he entered the corner, and Xingqian's car body was out of control as expected. Then Xingqian turned 360 degrees on the track and crashed into the guardrail at the same time. When she turned the second lap out of control, the rear of the car just hit the track fence. It was at this moment that her out-of-control state was slightly stagnant. Sun Yan seized this moment to add gas, so that the tires regained grip, and Xingqian was able to successfully exit the corner with an acceptable speed loss. The difficulty of completing this operation is undoubtedly comparable to climbing to the sky. It tests the driver's track experience, driving skills and nerve reflex speed. In general, the driver will be slightly distracted at the moment of the collision, and it is difficult to seize the moment of the collision to complete the operation. If this fleeting opportunity is not seized, the driver will continue to lose control under inertia. At that time, let alone turning, it will be a problem whether she can finish the race. But Sun Yan did it. Combined with Sun Yan's previous devilish cornering skills, Uncle Liang couldn't tell whether it was just luck or Sun Yan was sure he did it on purpose. But it's still hard to beat Li Yong and Comet from VVC Club just like this. While the crowd around was discussing the 360-degree spiral turn just now, Uncle Liang's eyes showed a trace of worry. Everyone thought that Sun Yan and Xingqian would definitely win. After all, judging from Xingqian and Sun Yan's previous performance, their straight-line speed was higher than Li Yong and Comet. Even if the two mecha girls were almost at the same speed out of the corner, Comet with full fuel would definitely not be Xingqian's opponent. But they ignored a little information they didn't know, but Uncle Liang knew it. Li Yong is not an ordinary racer, he is an intelligent mechanic. Smart mechanic. I hope Li Yong has some shame. If he uses psychic power on a newcomer in a training match, it will be too embarrassing. Uncle Liang shook his head, but the competition is like a battlefield. He can't predict or interfere with what Li Yong and Comet think. On the Bana Valley track, even though her butt was hit, Xingqian's straight-line acceleration advantage is still reflected. The two girls' exit speeds are similar, and her car body is stabilizing. And resolutely surpass Comet, no matter how Comet's engine roared behind. Master, we are going to lose this game. You have to think of a way. Comet looked at Xingqian, who was already half a car space ahead, with eyes full of unwillingness. You mean to let me use psychic power? Li Yong scratched his head. Wouldn't it be bad? The opponent is just a newcomer, and his machine girl is a pile of shit when turning. But I don't want to lose, especially to a useless car. Comet gritted his teeth and said, Newcomer, do you think that man's skills are new? He is simply a monster. Well, I agree with this point, that driver is really outrageous. Li Yong nodded with a smile, stretched out his hand to touch Comet's back to help Comet's hair, but this is just a training game. If I use psychic power, if this matter gets out, where will my old face be? I will help you wash your underwear for one day. Comet bit her red lips. Xingqian was already one car space ahead of her, and was swaying left and right to block her position so that she wouldn't have any chance to overtake. One day's underwear is only one pair. Every time I use my psychic energy, I feel lonely and empty for a long time, Li Yong pouted. 3 days. Comet gritted his teeth. 1 week. Li Yong smiled evilly. Help me wash my underwear for a week, and I will take you flying with my psychic skills today. Comet was not happy, but she could already see the finish line. She almost yelled hysterically. 1 week is 1 week. Okay. Li Yong went all out, pressing both hands on the joystick, and circles of light blue energy passed along his arms to Comet. It doesn't matter if this gets out and is ridiculed by teammates, it doesn't matter if he is scolded by the coach, it doesn't matter if it stains his resume. As long as the cold Comet can wash his underwear for a week. A happy life begins. Shadow. With Li Yang's roar, the body of Comet turned into a twisted black phantom, and the speed was much faster. She ignored the interception of Xingqian in front, and even passed through Xingqian's body, and the two mechas gradually overlapped. When Sun Yan saw the translucent Li Yong gradually moving up from the side and rear of the field of vision, his face was quite wonderful. What the hell are you? Sun Yan thought he had seen a ghost. After all, the current state of Li Yong and Comet was almost the same as the hearse in a horror movie. I'm sorry, brother, Li Yong said with a smirk. In order to let my mecha wash my underwear for a week, I can only bully the weak. Sun Yan. Xingqian also noticed the comet that was gradually surpassing her. She looked at the phantom comet, and fierce sparks flew in the eyes of the two mechas. Xingqian. Want to overtake my car? No way. Comet. Haha, you're still too young. I'll just have to have a hand to beat you. The contemptuous look and provocation from the senior obviously irritated Xingqian. She no longer looked at Comet, but just stared at the track, making a roar that could even cover the engine. I'm not a scrap car. I'm not a murderous car. Ah, Emperor engine starting. In Sun Yan's vision, he could only see Xingqian's back, and these words popped up above Xingqian's head. Hey, Xingqian, calm down, the cylinder will explode. He clearly remembered that Xingqian's explosion rate was now 80%. However, Xingqian turned a deaf ear to him. All she saw was the speeding track and the increasingly approaching finish line. I can win, she said to herself. I can prove myself. I won't embarrass the master. Comet's eyes widened. She couldn't understand what made Xingqian burst out with such a terrifying speed. Li Yang's advantage in using the shadow transformation was gradually being equalized. 100 meters from the finish line. The leaders are now Comet and Li Yong. The uncle's passionate roar echoed in the rainstorm. We can see that Li Yong and Comet from the VVC club have used psychic power. Although this is just a training match, the field is like a battlefield. It's either you die or I live. Even professional racers have to go all out. 50 meters from the finish line. What did I see? Xingqian and that man actually caught up. The two mechas gradually overlapped. Can Xingqian catch up in the last blink of an eye? 10 meters from the finish line. Can win. Xingqian felt her chest burning as if she was holding a ball of fire. She could hardly feel the gap with Comet. Win. Bang. The engine module exploded. At the last moment of losing consciousness, Xingqian crossed the finish line with a bright smile on his face. The car was in a state of panic, but the driver was still very nervous. Xingqian's engine had exploded, and when he heard the bang, Sun Yan's eyes went dark. In his previous career, he had only had a few engine failures, and as his skills in cars got better and better, engine failures had almost been deleted from his dictionary. His first reaction was to feel embarrassed, but he came to his senses in an instant. He was no longer in the world he used to be in. He was not driving a racing car, but a girl. Xingqian, how are you? Sun Yan quickly got up to check on Xingqian. At this moment, Xingqian's car body was still sliding forward, and even during the sliding process, Xingqian's unfolded form was automatically cancelled. Sun Yan subconsciously hugged Xingqian's weak body, and the inertia of the racing car brought him to the ground and rolled forward. Although he knew that Xingqian, who could break tiles with his forehead, would not be affected by a fall. But he still subconsciously protected Xingqian and used his flesh as a cushion until he hit the nearby guardrail. It hurts so much. Sun Yan felt that his waist or back seemed to be broken, and he lost feeling after a burst of severe pain. Master, Xingqian opened one eye tiredly and said with a smile, I won, I am not a useless machine girl. I know you are not a useless machine girl. Sun Yan sat up against the guardrail, and his mouth twitched, but I am almost useless. Master, my butt hurts. Sun Yan knew that it was because of the collision at the hairpin bend before, which hit Xingqian hard, but there was nothing he could do. He wanted to win for MP points, and Xingqian wanted to win for dignity, so they hit it off and had to take this risk. It's okay if your butt hurts, I'll go back and help you rub it. Master, you are so lustful. Then what else hurts besides your butt? Sun Yan held his forehead. Xingqian touched his chest weakly and frowned. My chest is burning, swollen and painful. Master, am I going to die? Your cylinder exploded. Explosion, what is cylinder explosion? Sun Yan. If Xingqian was not a wounded soldier now, he really couldn't help but hit Xingqian on the forehead. This guy wouldn't be sleeping soundly when other mecha girls were listening carefully. Cylinder explosion is a common thing for racing cars. Generally, the engine can be replaced, but what about mecha girls? He didn't install an engine module for Xingqian, so it's impossible to replace the intelligent core. It's not Sun Yan's fault that he doesn't know anything. He had a strong desire to study YU 786 at the beginning. But every time he wanted to study in depth, U-786 would look aggrieved and talk to him about human rights and respect. In addition, no one taught Sun Yan professional knowledge about mecha girls, which led to his only superficial knowledge of many things about mecha girls. Your cyborg has exploded. Li Yong took Comet to Sun Yan, observed Xingqian's condition and comforted him. The engine is bound to the intelligent core. Have a good rest tonight, and she will be full of energy tomorrow. He glanced at Xingqian's shoes that were almost worn out, but the tires need to be changed. Your cornering method is very powerful, but it burns tires. It's best to change her tires after each race. You don't want your cyborg to run barefoot on the ground, right? Master, why are you talking so much to this monster? Comet tugged at Li Yang's racing suit, glanced at Sun Yan and said unhappily, I don't know how you, a monster, drive a cyborg after using psychic power and only tied for first place. I can't stand it. That, the most handsome man in the world, do you have a club? Li Yong smiled obscenely, our VVC club needs talents like you. Come to our club, Comet, and I will protect you. Comet's mouth twitched, and he dragged Li Yong out of the track arrogantly. Oh, wait, what if he wants to come to our club? I don't want to be in the same club with XC99. Comet, be patient for a while and you will have a bright future. Be patient, aren't you ashamed? Comet looked back at Xingqian, who was curled up in Sun Yan's arms, and snorted coldly, XC99, you are lucky this time. If I meet him again in the future, I will not let you go. Who asked you to let me go? You fool. Xingqian struggled to get up, and Sun Yan quickly held her down. Be quiet, I'm not going to explode. Xingqian sat back after hearing this, grinning and waving her fists at Comet and Li Yong, who turned and left. After a while, she sighed in relief, leaned on Sun Yan's shoulder, and smiled, Master, we won. Yes, we won. Sun Yan looked at the MP points that only gave him 10, and could only hide a bitter smile in his heart. It's true that he tied for first place, but his golden finger doesn't recognize it. As long as it's not the absolute first place, it will all be counted as second place. Adding these 10 megapixels points, Xingqian has a cornering attribute of 32.5. Not to mention that the continuous hairpin bends of the Knox circuit can't be passed. When taking the professional racing driver's license, not only the driver but also the pilot must be tested. One of the items is to let the pilot pass 8 C-shaped bends in a row. If he is driving, Xingqian will definitely pass it easily, but if he is not driving and Xingqian has to do it by himself, the cornering speed must be greater than 50 and he must not hit any guardrails. There is little hope. Master, why are you so upset? Are you unhappy? Xingqian poked Sun Yan's face. No, I just have a sore back. Oh wow, Xingqian will massage your back right now. Quote. Don't move, it hurts. The uncle's helicopter landed quickly, along with medical staff that had been prepared in the helicopter. Everyone hurriedly lifted Sun Yan onto the plane, but Xingqian was fine after a short rest. Boy, you've become famous in this race with the VVC racer. The uncle looked at Sun Yan on the stretcher with excitement. At this time, there were still many racers and girls who had started late but had not reached the finish line, but the uncle was too lazy to watch. Those wild racers would definitely not be able to beat Li Yong and Comet of VVC, and they would definitely not be able to beat Xingchen and this most handsome man, and the rest of the race would be boring. I've recorded the video of you and Li Yang's fight, and I'll play it in front of the Bana Valley Raceway. The uncle shook Sun Yan's hand up and down. In Sun Yan's annoyed eyes, he took a box from the bodyguard and opened it in front of Sun Yan and Xingchen. There was neatly stacked cash inside. This is your bounty, 200,000. Wow, I'm rich, Xingchen cheered. She didn't really have any idea, but she knew that the bounty was 10 times the previous training match. Isn't it 100,000? Sun Yan was stunned. Oh, Li Yong said that he won unfairly, and he was not at ease with this money, so he said to leave it for you to recover from your injuries. The uncle closed the box and wiped his eyes with a touching face. Is this the friendship between talented racers? It's really weird. Sun Yan, but it's okay, 200,000 can buy a steering module for Xingchen, so that the missing attributes can be made up. Boy, you should participate in the Knox rally the day after tomorrow, right? The uncle suddenly became serious and said solemnly, you are injured now and cannot participate in the competition, so I took the initiative to send you to the nearby Intelligent Medical Center. The treatment fee may be a bit expensive, so be prepared. It should be said that this world is indeed high-tech. His injury is not serious, but it is definitely not light. According to the medical level on Earth, he will not be able to touch the car for at least half a year. But in this world's Intelligent Medical Center, it only took 1 hour for all his injuries to recover. Of course, the cost is also very terrifying. 1 hour of treatment corresponds to 500,000 treatment fees. Of course, Sun Yan couldn't afford it. In the end, he agreed to wear a racing suit customized by the uncle to participate in Knox, and obtained a 500,000 medical fee exemption. He had seen the photo of the racing suit in advance. It was a very pink color with Hello Kitty painted all over it. There was also a headshot of the uncle's 5-year-old daughter on the chest and back. I don't know if it was an illusion. Although this little girl smiled beautifully, she gave people a feeling of sickness. It was already evening when Sun Yan took Xingchen away from the medical center. He looked at the dim sky and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, the 200,000 bounty is saved. Together with the previous 220,000, it should be possible to change Xingchen's tires and install a slightly decent steering module. Oh, module. Xingchen clapped her hands excitedly. The happiest mecha girl in the world will soon have her first module. However, when Sun Yan took Xingchen to the previous module store, the boss told him expressionlessly that the blue quality steering module was sold out. It was yesterday, the last steering module was bought by an old man. The boss picked his teeth and said, why didn't you come earlier? Oh no, even if you came earlier, it would be useless. That module costs 300,000, and you don't have enough money. Let's not talk about this first. You are such a big store, can't you prepare more goods? What's on the counter will be gone after they are sold. Sun Yan's nose was crooked with anger, and Xingchen beside him nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. That's right, why don't you invest in us, it's definitely worth it. We just won the training match of Bana Valley and tied for first place with Li Yong of VVC Club. Hehe, are you kidding me? Do you think I will believe it? The boss sneered. He heard about the competition, but how could the racer and the pilot who could race with Li Yong of VVC look so poor? Look at this kid, his face is pale and he looks very weak, his racing suit is dirty, and he is wearing flip-flops on his feet. Look at the pilot of this kid, he is as tall as a bean, and he has nothing to do except big breasts and cute looks, he is still wet behind the ears. Okay, it's late today, I'm going to close the store. Do you want to take a look at the steering module of lower quality or other blue quality modules? If you don't buy anything, get out of here. You're closing the door so early. Are you in a hurry to reincarnate? Sun Yan was furious, but the boss had already locked the door with a bang. That's right, Xingchen chimed in, we are really the number one in Bana Valley. The boss was annoyed and said impatiently, well, I heard that the number one named Xingchen is a silver luxury sports car. Can you show me the body? Xingchen immediately wanted to show the boss the body, but after holding it in for a long time, her face turned red and she couldn't do it. She had a cylinder explosion and her body hadn't recovered yet, but apart from unfolding the body, they really didn't have anything to prove their identity. The uncle before went to customize the racing suit after paying the medical bills, and he didn't leave a phone number. We really are, Xingchen said stubbornly. The boss curled his lips speechlessly. Get out of the way. I'm in a hurry to go back to watch the recording of the Bana Valley training game. Quote. He violently pushed away Sun Yan and Xingchen's interception and rode away leisurely on his electric scooter. The store was busy before, and he just heard that the Bana Valley training match was exciting, so he didn't have time to watch it. You fool, you will regret it. Xingchen shouted at the boss's departing back. I'm so angry. Xingchen stamped his feet. Master, no one in this world believes the truth. Forget it. Sun Yan touched Xingchen's head. Let's go back first. I'll change your tires tomorrow and go to the next city to see if there is a compatible module. Quote. Yeah, Sun Yan sighed secretly. It's not clear if there are module shops in the next city. I'm afraid I won't have enough time. Xingchen must rest tonight. Tomorrow he has to change tires, buy modules, and take the driving test for the girl driver's license. The future is dark. The streets at dusk are busy, just like the earth, filled with pedestrians, vehicles and snack stalls parked on the roadside. Xingchen suddenly grabbed Sun Yan's clothes and pointed to the cart in the distance. Master, I want to eat candied haws. Okay, I'll buy it for you. Master, I want stinky tofu too. Okay, no problem. Sun Yan stared at the little girl in front of him, who had a string of candied haws in her left hand and a string of stinky tofu in her right hand, and looked back at him with a smile from time to time. It seemed that the future was suddenly not so dark. Sun Yan, she is a girl. He put his hands in his pockets and looked at the clouds in the sky, and emphasized again in his heart, it's not a racing car. After a long time, the two sides have been busy. Sun Yan, who has come to his senses, is not so obsessed with getting Xingchen a good ranking. If it doesn't work, he will buy a cheap steering module. At most, other attributes will be reduced. Anyway, his skills are there, so he can use his skills to make up for those reduced attributes and ensure that Xingchen can get a ranking in Nox and participate in the next competition. He bought Xingchen a lot of snacks and some more daily clothes. It's impossible to wear a tight racing suit all the time. He also bought himself a pair of decent racing driver shoes. He doesn't care about the racing suit on his body, because he has to wear the Hello Kitty jersey sponsored by the uncle anyway. Although he bought useful things, he still spent almost 10,000 yuan. As for money, Sun Yan has let it go. The only thing he can't figure out now is how Li Yong and Comet turned the car into a phantom and accelerated to overlap with him and Xingchen during the previous race. Every time I recall this scene, I feel like I'm watching a horror movie. Xingchen, how did Comet overlap with you at that time? Do you still remember? Sun Yan felt that Xingchen should know something, because Xingchen was just a little surprised when he was overtaken by the hearse. Well, I felt the psychic fluctuations at that time. Psychic. Sun Yan was stunned. What the hell? X-Men, Magneto. Marvel Universe. Although this unscientific world already has mecha girls, it is not unacceptable to be a little more bizarre. But, as a time traveler, his advantage is that he has plugins, but what if there are a group of people in this world who also have plugins? Master, that Li Yong is an omnipotent. Xingchen finished eating the candied haws and licked the syrup on his lips and fingers. I don't know what his specific abilities are, but the reason why the XC-76 was able to overlap with me at that time must be that he used the omnipotent skills. So powerful. Yes, omnipotents are very powerful, and they have a high status among the mecha girls. They can bring miraculous improvements to the mecha girls in the competition. Omnipotence and omnipotent skills. Sun Yan frowned and pondered for a while. Can the mecha girls be given some special abilities? If all the unpredictable special drivers are encountered in future competitions, there will be too many unexpected situations during the competition. However, this not only did not hit Sun Yan's confidence, but instead made him rise in fighting spirit. Originally, his mecha girl Xingchen had the special ability Emperor Engine, and he also had the golden finger that the Traverser brought. Combining these two, the difficulty of clearing the world line is directly reduced from hell level to beginner level. But what's the point of such a world? The pressure was almost zero, so much so that it was hard for him to be serious during the race. Now it was different. The Omnics in this world had become a stumbling block to his domination of the track. And he was just the kind of person who would get more excited when he encountered stronger enemies. Okay, that's how it's fun. Sun Yan clenched his fists and raised his lips. Xingqian next to him looked at his driver strangely. Why did he feel that Sun Yan was still so motivated when he heard about the Omnics? Wouldn't ordinary people be shocked? Could it be that, oh, Master, I know. Xingqian's eyes were bright, pointing at Sun Yan. There is only one truth. Master, admit it, you are actually an Omnic, right? Your amazing cornering skills are simply not something that ordinary people can do. Hoo, how long are you going to hide it from me? Ah, this. Sun Yan's mouth twitched. You think too much, Xingqian. I'm not an Omnic, I don't even know how Omnics came about. But Xingqian's words also reminded him. Could it be that his golden finger is the ability of an Omnic? Xingqian, have you ever felt that psychic fluctuation in me? As he spoke, Sun Yan had already added 10 megapixels points to Xingqian's cornering attribute, and the attribute value also increased from 22.5 to 32.5. No, Xingqian shook her head blankly. It turns out that the master is not an Omnic. She lowered her head, a little disappointed. Sun Yan. This stinky girl. Then do you know how Omnics came about? Sun Yan twisted his wrist with a smile. Maybe I will have a chance to become an Omnic in the future. In fact, when Sun Yan heard Xingqian say that he had no psychic fluctuations, he was happy in his heart, which meant that he had traveled through time. Bringing the golden finger is not a skill of the Omnic Master. If he can't beat those cheaters in the future, the worst thing is that he will open a cheat in this world, become an Omnic Master, and defeat magic with magic. However, judging from the current information, the Omnic Master must be very rare, and it is definitely not something that ordinary people can achieve. Master, you are right. Xingqian took Sun Yan's hand, fumbled on his arm for a while, and said with a serious face, shaking her head, I think Master has amazing bones, and he will definitely awaken to an Omnic Master in the future, then I will be the happiest mecha girl in the world. Do you mean you are very unfortunate now? No, I am the second happiest mecha girl in the world now. What about the first one? The first one is me after Master became an Omnic Master. Sun Yan. Well, let's just say this girl's answer barely passed. The two chatted all the way home. Sun Yan already had a rough idea of what an omnicist was. As he expected, omnicists were very rare, and it was impossible to become an omnicist through any form of training. To become an omnicist, one had to rely on talent. As for where to become an omnicist, Xingqian only said that racers and mecha girls had to achieve certain achievements before they could get the opportunity to awaken. As for whether they could awaken successfully, it all depended on fate. If you want to become world-class, the special ability of mecha girls is a stepping stone, then the driver being an omnicist is the hand that sends mecha girls and drivers steadily into the world-class door. Uncle Liang, we're back. Sun Yan and Xingqian each carried a box in their hands and pushed the door open with a sly smile. There was a box on the wooden table in the middle. Uncle Liang was sitting at the table with his legs crossed, drinking tea and watching TV, and selectively ignoring Sun Yan and Xingqian. Although ignored by Uncle Liang, Sun Yan and Xingqian had their own way of showing their presence. They held up a small box full of money, one stood on the left, the other on the right, twisting and turning in front of Uncle Liang, doing all kinds of weird movements. Of course, Sun Yan was the main C position, but Xingqian also learned to imitate him. We won, we really won. The prize is 200,000. Oh, Master bought me a lot of snacks and new clothes. Quote. Uncle Liang's indifferent expression gradually solidified. These two brats. Sit down. Get out if you shake again. Sun Yan and Xingqian immediately sat down at the table, folded their hands, raised their heads and chests, and sat more upright than elementary school students in class. Uncle Liang took a breath, picked up the tea and took a sip. I watched your training match in Bana Valley, and the performance was. Sun Yan and Xingqian stared at Uncle Liang with shining eyes. Uncle Liang. Tisk. Not bad. Originally wanted to criticize Sun Yan and Xingqian as usual, but thought better of it. The two kids tried their best in the Bana Valley training match, which made him swallow his harsh words. Uncle Liang, you got up so early this morning just to watch the game between me and Xingqian. Quote dot dot dot. No, I just passed by and took a look. Really? Really? Uncle Liang looked away. Anyway, you performed well, I take back my previous criticism of you and Xingqian. He turned his eyes back to Sun Yan and Xingqian. But racing is a very dangerous sport, I still don't agree with you participating, but I know that I can only be regarded as an elder at most. I can suggest but cannot decide your choice. As an elder, I can't do nothing. I can only try my best to protect you, so. He pushed the box on the table in front of Sun Yan. This is a blue quality steering module called Hurricane. Although it will reduce other attributes such as acceleration, you will still face many challenges in the future. I hope you can get through it safely no matter what. The car was in a state of panic, but the car was in a state of panic. Isn't this steering module exactly what he had his eyes on before? Sun Yan stared at the module on the table. The boss said that the module was bought yesterday. So the buyer was Uncle Liang. After all this time, Uncle Liang had planned to let him participate in the Nox rally. Otherwise, why would he buy a module for Xingqian? Uncle Liang. Sun Yan shouted with a sob, and immediately wanted to kowtow to Uncle Liang. As a result, Uncle Liang pressed on the module with his backhand and said angrily, "Try to knock it once, and I will confiscate the module immediately. Are you free? You have to run in the module after installing it on the machine girl. You have to take the driver qualification test tomorrow, right?" Sun Yan didn't knock it, and Xingqian next to him slammed the table with tears in his eyes. Although he didn't use much force, Xingqian still knocked a spider web-like crack on the solid wood table. "Grandpa Liang, I will never forget your kindness to Xingqian. Woohoo, I am the happiest mecha girl in the world. Woohoo. Uncle Liang, actually, I am not that old. Uncle Liang, this module is expensive." Sun Yan frowned and pushed the module back. "It is too expensive. I can't accept it. I believe that with the ability of Xingqian and I, we can complete the driving school assessment. We can buy modules when we make money in the future." Although he coveted the Hurricane module, although this thing can only improve the cornering attribute by 8 points, and other attributes will be reduced by 3 to 5 points, it is the most suitable module for Xingqian now. However, this module is expensive. The price he saw at the beginning was 300,000, and it is impossible to reduce the price in a short time. Uncle Liang's remelting field does not make much money every year. 300,000 is already Uncle Liang's own retirement money. He feels uneasy about using Uncle Liang's retirement money to modify the mecha girl. "You little brat, when I contracted the robot girl, I didn't realize you were the kind of person who would take so much time. You finished it all by yourself in the warehouse, as if you were afraid someone would snatch it away." Uncle Liang snorted coldly and knocked on the table. "Don't you have the confidence to win the first place in the Nox rally? That's a full 500,000 bonus. Can't you just pay me back after you win the first place?" "I definitely have the confidence to win the first place in the Nox rally." Sun Yan scratched his head. Uncle Liang's words had completely moved him. "Since you said so, I'd rather obey you than be respectful." He picked up the heavy steering module. It was full of Uncle Liang's thoughts, which was really tearful. Sun Yan's nose was sore, and he couldn't help but think of his old father in his previous life. He didn't know how the old man was doing now. But he left so much money and luxury cars to his father, and also high insurance. He will definitely have no problem with food and clothing in this life. He can also find a few young sisters to make a few brothers for him. Remember to compensate for the table later. Uncle Liang calmly picked up the teacup and took a sip. "This is made of 1,000-year-old golden cicada wood. You can go and ask how much it costs when you have time." Sun Yan, but wasn't this destroyed by Xingqian? Is Xingqian your robot girl? Yes, then you won't compensate. Sun Yan smiled awkwardly. "Uncle Liang, look at me, I still have charm." Uncle Liang, "Look, why not? Get lost." On the way back to the warehouse, Xingqian kept looking at Sun Yan with a weird look. "What's wrong? Is there something wrong with my face?" Sun Yan was puzzled. Xingqian lowered her head and stirred her fingers. "I'm sorry, Master, Xingqian has caused trouble again, forcing Master to bear a high debt, and even making Master think of selling her body to illegally pay back the debt. I am not a qualified mecha girl." She looked up at Sun Yan, tears flashing in her eyes. but in order to support Master's career, I will definitely actively help Master to attract customers. Sun Yan, Amy Tofu, don't be angry, don't be angry, she is just a mecha girl who knows nothing, why bother with her? Sun Yan silently repeated, not angry, 3 times in his heart, and said unhappily, did you misunderstand something? What I just meant was to recognize a godfather, that is 1,000-year-old golden cicada wood. Then Master, do you recognize Grandpa Liang or the golden cicada wood? Of course it's Jin, cough cough, of course it's Uncle Liang. In Xingqian's suspicious eyes, Sun Yan coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment. The two had just walked to the warehouse, and he took the hurricane steering module out of the box. Don't say anything else. Oh wow, Xingqian clenched his fist and waved it, his eyes shining, fragrant module. The hurricane module is only the size of a fist, and looks like a Rubik's Cube emitting silver light. Sun Yan held the module and gestured on Xingqian for a long time, and successfully received Xingqian's eyes as if he was looking at a big fool. Master, you don't know how to install the module. Ah, this, you unfold it first. Sun Yan would never admit this, anyway, as long as he tried more, he would definitely figure it out. Unfold, Xingqian's mouth twitched, stretched out his hand to pinch the zipper of the racing suit and pulled it down, turned around to reveal his S-shaped waist, and put one hand behind his back and pointed at the back waist, it should be installed here. The unfolded form cannot install the module. Master is stupid. Why did you take off your clothes? Quote. Sun Yan was stunned at first, then quickly raised his hand to cover his eyes. I didn't see anything, I'm not a pervert. But the previous images in his mind kept circling, he felt it was inappropriate to stand, and sat on the chair behind him relying on his memory. How can I install the module without taking off my clothes? Xingqian looked at Sun Yan strangely, and seeing Sun Yan's embarrassed look, she narrowed her eyes slightly, and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Oh, is the master shy? Tisk tisk, it turns out that the master is the legendary trash pilot who will enter the estrus state when he sees the body of the machine girl. Miscellaneous, trash pilot. Sun Yan almost couldn't catch his breath. What trash pilot? This is called men and women should not touch each other. Don't you have a rule for the machine girls and pilots? When I was in the Tengyu Club before, I just touched the back of YU 786 and was said to be indecent, and she was still wearing clothes. Quote. Who is U 786? Xingqian walked to Sun Yan and leaned over to look at his face. A girl from the Tengyu Club was going to sign a contract with me, but she kicked me out because she didn't like my track experience. Sun Yan said it indifferently, but Xingqian was so angry that her face turned red when she heard it. She put one hand on her waist and patted Sun Yan's shoulder. Master, don't worry, if you meet that YU 786, I will help you deal with her. She dared to bully my pilot, I think she is tired of living. Sun Yan subconsciously put down his hand, and saw a white flower in front of him, took a breath and covered his eyes again. Ahem, then you have this opportunity, she is going to participate in the Nox rally. Humph, then she is finished. Xingqian snorted twice, looking at Sun Yan helplessly. But master, are you really not going to help me change the module? There are indeed rules between the mecha girl and the driver, but I am the mecha girl. After the contract with you, I am your property. There is no need to be so serious. Just like those doctors, they only see patients, not bitterness. Quote. Sun Yan thought that doctors are doctors, and doctors have no bitterness in their minds. He is just a wholehearted racing driver, and a virgin in 2 lives. He can't control it. Then he felt a cold little hand holding his big hand. The mecha girl can't change the module by herself. She doesn't have such authority. The master must do it personally. Since the master dare not watch, I can only do it myself. Xingqian's calm voice echoed in his ears. Then he felt a huge force lift up his hand holding the hurricane module and pressed it into an unknown void. Sun Yan. Quote. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.